And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
All right, we're live, baby.
You know it, live 8:05 Eastern Time, 5:05 Pacific Time for those of the West Coast. Sunshine West Coast, outstanding. We got a lot of people already on the live. Got great comments here. Good morning, everybody. I try to name 8:05 Eastern Time.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm trying to share this out. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Listen, it's funny when you hear yourself, right?
Yeah.
I try to name everybody, but sometimes I miss. But listen, good morning. Hassan, man, first one again. Thank you so much. Listen to the podcast. Matthew O'Brien, good morning. Cactus Joe, CM Lerdo, Paul Haggerty, Mort Rouge, John Marshall, Juju, of course. Dropped the 10-4-5-2. Let's get right into it. We got some big news. News is endless when it comes to New York City, New York State, and the entire country for America. Armed Venezuelan gang take over apartment complex in Colorado. Before we get into that, I just want to say, so the rumor, well, not a rumor, right? Pretty much we could say congratulations and goodbye to Michael Kemper from New York City Police Department. The chief of transit will be moving on and going to 233 Broadway. But what's interesting about that is that John Schell said that no one will be headed to 233 Broadway anytime soon. Probably because, John Schell, you're right. With the immediate attention you're getting for the bullying tactics and the fact that you're committing a crime electioneering on social media, you might be headed to 500 Pearl Street.
Oh, absolutely. So I think the New York Times is gearing up to do a hit piece on the podcast. We've been getting a lot of weird follows lately, a lot of weird requests. So we're looking forward to that one. That'll be hysterical. But yeah, Kemper filed for retirement yesterday. So he's out. We're hearing rumors that Chief of Housing, Matarazzo, she's going to be out as well, followed by Caban. And again, we even heard the rumor that what's up face is out too. Tanya Kinsella, that she's out. She's not in with the in crowd. So what does Juju say? We got a lot of people. Checks YouTube count, just 15 people. Actually, Juju, we're got 58 people and climbing. We'll have 100 in here in the next 5 minutes. But thank you for keeping count. We appreciate you, my friend. Again, we're on numerous platforms streaming all across. So appreciate your help.
That was CompStat math. Math.
So. Some of you might have been confused by the meme that I put out yesterday. We will be talking about the sergeants not receiving a contract in the last 3 years. They've been working without a contract for the last 3 years. We're going to talk about that. But before we do, we're going to get into these Venezuelan illegals that took over an apartment complex in Colorado. I mean, it's in Aurora, Colorado, and I think that's more important than anything else that we could really be talking about. Because if you think that, I'm safe because I'm not in Colorado, I'm in New York City, and Eric Adams brought the most amount of people in the country here, out from outside of the country, and you think that can't happen, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind.
Well, definitely. Before we get into that, I just want to say that I want to congratulate Chief Michael Kemper. Heading towards retirement. Hope that you have an opportunity and enjoy it. I must admit, I do believe in many ways he's a charlatan, but I do want to give him credit and say this. He by far showed more mental strength, fortitude in his leadership position, and thicker skin than John Schell and Cass Daughtry could ever take. I mean, we had probably just as much memes, that comical memes about Michael Kemper. If anything, far more comical about Michael Kemper than John Schell and Cass Daughtry. And he handled it very well, but showed much more thick skin. So with that, I will say congratulations to you. I hope you enjoy your retirement. Nothing's personal. We talk about this stuff because we want a better leadership for the NYPD. So I hope you enjoy your endeavors in retirement. You definitely showed far more thick skin than these two clowns.
100%. A few of my friends had reached out to me because they work directly for Kemper, and they were like, "Lay off of him. He's a good guy. I worked with him." I'm like, "I'm not saying nothing. Nothing's personal. We're just talking. We're just joking around here. We're not saying nothing. We're not saying anything that's insane. And they were like, yeah, he thinks the memes are funny anyway. So he would never really gave two craps about it. And I always thought that was I thought that was very upstanding of him. I thought that was a manly response. Like, what do I care what these guys are saying? I'm the chief of transit. What do I care what anybody's saying about me on a podcast or two retired guys? So so as far as that, I mean, we've exposed him at a lot of press conferences saying ridiculous things. But like we said, we don't think Eric Adams is going to point anyone that's not going to say ridiculous things. So, I know I wish him well. I know Eric wishes him well too. It was no hard feelings. It just is what it is. You're saying crime's down. You're saying transit crime is near historic lows. I mean, it's ridiculous, So, I mean, we were just giving our opinion of it. He might have a different opinion of it, whatever, but no hard feelings, So.
Well, that's why I continue to say I do believe when it comes to that, he's a charlatan. At the same token, if I had a used car sales shop or if I had any auto dealer, I would put Michael Kemper at the front of that, honestly. But I do wish him well. I heard he is a gentleman. I heard he's a nice guy. And, with that, I hope he enjoys his retirement. I hope he actually retires and goes out and enjoys it. I know for some of these guys, they're used to that 9 to 5, and there's no other way that they can find they need that structure, and they need that prestige. I wouldn't be surprised if Michael Kemper finds himself something else. So, but like I said, congratulations. So let's get on with it, and let's move into today's topic.
All right. So this comes out a few days ago. I actually put this out, I think, almost 2 days ago. I wanted to talk about it, I think, 2 days ago. There's just been so much going on in New York City. We never got a chance to. So an armed crew storms a Colorado apartment building that's overrun by Venezuelan gangs spilling out from Sanctuary City. So if you see the video that the Post is playing, you see AR-15, you see handguns. They probably have switches, making them fully automatic. And what they're doing is they're running around an apartment complex, and it looks like they're going door to door. I mean, completely scary thing. When I seen this, the first thing I retweeted was I said, this answers that question I hope this answers the question for you. Why do you need an AR-15 in America? Why does any civilian need an AR-15? Right here. This is a great example why, because there's an armed assailant. Honestly, at this point, I mean, I don't even think this looks like warfare to me more than this even looks like crime. This looks like a war zone. This is exactly, if I'm in apartment 301, I want an AR-15, and I want a couple of them, and I want a lot of bullets still.
John, hold on a second. The screen that you have coming up, there's a commercial in front of it. Do you see it? Yeah. Okay.
Well, thanks for telling me, Guy.
Can you go back to it?
I'm reading the wrong article.
What's even better? I'm sure Juju's writing that down right now. Oh, they made a mistake. Don't worry, Juju. It's all good. We don't cry out for spilled milk.
So here you go. This is the photo that I'm talking about right
Hey,
here.
Johnny Angel. Good morning, brother. He's got not a great info. EC, good morning. Yeah, so look at that photo. You know what this also tells me, right? And I've said this before on Pride Podcasts on social media. We have to look at the movement of majority of these illegal military age males when they commit crimes. It's clear and obvious to me that they have military training. That's what's also scary, is the way they maneuver and move in packs, and the ideology that they have, and the ability that they believe that they could actually overrun and overtake the building, and in the manner that they move house to house or apartment to apartment, and even the way that they're holding their firearms. Look at the way they're holding the guns and the way that they're standing clear away from the door. It's a great indication to me that they do have some military age training from their country. And if not, then they're learning from YouTube, because clearly their movement is that of someone trained.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my whole thing is this. How did they all end up together? Someone here says Tren de Aragua. Yeah, they're saying that's possibly Tren de Aragua is the gang. I'm going to call them Kamala de Aragua or Biden de Aragua or Adams de Aragua. And we should just probably make a term for them, because that's what it is. It's all of these people. And honestly, and the Colorado governor too. And we'll get into that. That was the article I have up too. We'll get into all of the things that have been happening in the politics in Aurora. Supposedly they're flooded. I mean, it's a small town and they're flooded with criminal gangs of illegal aliens. So, I mean, let's go further into the article. The video emerged after the post identified a Venezuelan gang shot caller, Leonardo Jose Pacheco Chorino, who had taken part in an assault and then a shooting at the Fitzsimmons Place apartment complex in Aurora, which was recently shut down over code violations, which the owners say they couldn't fix due to a takeover by the gang, according to so this is like New Jack City. Any of you guys ever watched New Jack City? This is what that is. This is what this is. The New Jacks just aren't from America. They're not from Brooklyn. They're from Venezuela. The apartment investor said they lost control of several apartments in the area to the gang, which has been renting out units to migrants under threat. They were first hanging out around the property and creating a bad element that's constantly there. And then they started taking over quite a few months ago. They started taking over vacant units. The last footage was captured earlier this month before a shootout at the edge of the Lowry apartment complex, severely injuring one person and damaged multiple cars, according to the local news. A separate clip had been taken at different times to show two men bashing the lock of a unit with a tire iron inside the same housing complex where migrants have moved in. Recent crime at the building has left residents of the edge on edge. It's been a nightmare, and I can't wait to get out of here, Cindy Romero told KDVR as she moved out of the building with her husband, Edward. The couple said the violence began when a large number of migrants moved into the building. So, I mean, this is kind of dispelling the whole narrative, the Eric Adams narrative of they just came here to work.
That's the key point right there. That's what's important to actually note, to actually sit and look at and say to yourself, okay, these sanctuary cities have this ideology that they're protecting migrants, protecting illegals, so that they have an opportunity to circumvent the as an asylum seeker and to find themselves work, to find themselves gainful employment, right? Because they want to give this idea that, well, if they find gainful employment, then we will not have to fund them. The taxpayer will not take the burden. But the problem is we see the pictures at the border and we see illegal military age males moving in packs. They're not traveling with women and children. They're not traveling as family. And they're traveling in these groups. Again, I've said this before. I spoke to numerous law enforcement from the Coast Guard that actually stopped various boats. They've retrieved a large amount of narcotics. But what was also with that narcotics was illegal military age males headed for this country that already had felonies and already had convictions, had already done prison time in their third world countries, and they were unwanted, and they're coming to this country and they're unvetted. Again, look at that picture. Clearly that they have trained. Look at the way they're approaching that door. They're not just standing right in front of that door. They're covering themselves. They're maneuvering and they're flanking that door, and they clearly have training, and that's what's scary. And I want to put the emphasis on that. Military age males, because they are that age, but they are military trained, many of them. And we can clearly make that observation just on this picture alone. Of course, the context of the information that we've been getting is that they're military trained from their country, and it's scary what's going on here. Juju likes to point out that, no, it's the governor's fault in Texas. Absolutely, there's plenty of people at fault here, but so are these Democratic mayors, including your mayor in New York, Eric Adams, that protects this city as a sanctuary city, does not call for a state of emergency, and makes amendments to these sanctuary cities to protect the good residents of New York City. Unfortunately, the only one that it protects are these military age males, and they're moving in packs. And John, I think what's important to note also is the fact that you pointed out is that they're found each other and that they're moving together. And do you think they can only connect in Colorado? I'm sure the gang members, if they are Tren de Aragua, or if they're a different gang from Venezuela, or whichever third world country that they stem from, they can connect with those in New York and start to build a network that really becomes a threat to this country. And that's what we have to start looking at. And it's not fear mongering, it's the truth.
Oh, absolutely. SAC 1008 asked, did Aurora cops do anything about it? So we're going to go into all that and as we get through this, but I'm going to give you a response from the governor. Then I'm going to give you a response from the mayor. And then I'm going to give you a response from a city councilwoman who's been fighting all of this insanity from the get-go and who's been called every name under the sun, like myself and Eric, for saying the same exact things, that where this is leading. And here we are. Again, I don't believe it's because I'm a mystic, Eric's a mystic, or the city councilwoman in Aurora is a mystic. It's obvious. It's completely obvious. You import the third world, you will deal with third world crime. And that's what happened. They used where am I at? All right. It's been a nightmare, she told. The couple said that the violence began when the migrants moved in. They used 5 locks on their apartment door from top to bottom, as well as a door security bar jammer. Every day when we come home, we have to do this every time we go outside to take the garbage, Cindy said, turning each lock. Every time we go to bed at night, we have to keep this like this so that nobody can kick in the door. Their car was one of the vehicles that was riddled with bullets after the shootout. The Romeros have been trying to move somewhere safer, but they said they couldn't get the help they needed to do so. We couldn't get any help. We tried reaching out to resources, but they told us since it was not a condemned building, we would have to wait. We would have to wait till that was the issue. But we didn't want to wait for that, Edward Romero told the local station. They finally were able to pack up their stuff and leave with the help of Aurora City Council member Daniel Jurinsky, who has been outspoken about the influx of alleged members of the Venezuelan prison gang Tren de Aragua in the suburb of 390,000 people. The city's not-for-profits have lined up to help migrants that have come here, but nobody is helping the Americans that are trapped in these apartment complexes, Jurinsky told the news station. And it isn't just Americans. Other Venezuelans are being extorted by this gang. So you see there's the picture of Cindy there with all her locks on the door. The council member spoke to the Post earlier this Wednesday about her community suffering from the spillover of Denver's new migrant population and resulting Tren de Aragua gang members.
You know, it's interesting that someone said here, right, what are the cops going to do? And clearly we know in democratic cities throughout this country, democratic cities equates to a sanctuary city, and they protect military-age males, migrants, part of this crisis. I think there is some gaslighting going on with actually the Aurora Police Department, because the reports say, if you read different news outlets, the reports say that the police department has indicated to the public that this is an isolated incident. And that's far from the truth to tell anyone that this is isolated, that these gang incidents are isolated. This is part of a national problem that's going on throughout this country. We need to have our ears and eyes open at this point and be prepared for anything. And that's what's so important to reflect on. Could this come to New York City? Could this come to Los Angeles? Could this come to a city near you? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. And just we speak about the New York City Police Department on a daily basis. I mean, that's pretty much the forte of this podcast. And on a daily basis, we could find a video where NYPD police officers are physically under attack and where the police department is being embarrassed, unfortunately, because they're handicapped or some of the police officers are refusing to do their job. And they're really under the gun of Civilian Complaint Review Board and other entities of oversight, and the police department are moving gingerly and afraid to do their job. And we see police officers being overrun and overcome with resistance constantly. So ask yourself that. What would the NYPD do right now? Do we believe that our New York City Police Department is prepared to handle these military-age males that are trained, and they appear to have better firepower than the New York City Police Department has? And I have argued this for years. We don't have access to shotguns. We don't have access to AR-15s. You're in a patrol car in New York City right now. It's you and your partner, and you both have your little 9. What are you going to do against armed adversaries, a group of Venezuelan gang members that are all armed with AR-15s? And I don't know what other means that they have gotten access to, but they could, because clearly they're trained and they're capable of handling firepower that even police officers can't handle. Unfortunately, most police officers that I know, especially in the New York City Police Department, I can't speak for Aurora, are not trained in firepower that exceeds their little 9mm. They're not trained to handle shotguns. They're not trained to handle AR-15s. So here's another problem that we have.
Yeah, so we got about 200 people in here. If you guys could do me a favor, if you could just share it out, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Rumble, if you're on YouTube, I'd like to get some more people in here. I do have a neighbor. He didn't want to come on here. I have a neighbor now where I'm at in Florida. He actually left. He wasn't from Aurora, but he was from Denver, Colorado, and he left. He left early like myself. He just couldn't take it anymore. He's like, I don't want my kids growing up here. He said the politics had just destroyed his department, had destroyed his community. And this is pre all of this going on. So we're, for those of you that just join in, we're talking about the armed Venezuelan gang takeover where they took over an apartment complex in Colorado. So this is from the city councilwoman in Aurora who's pushing back at this. To our governor and the mayor of Denver, I refuse to be silenced. I refuse to play the game of politics with you regarding this migrant crisis. And I will continue to speak up and help as many people as I can, she said. Denver, a sanctuary city, has received the largest number of migrants per capita across the nation, with more than 40,000 new arrivals since December 2022. I don't think that's accurate. I don't think that's accurate at all. I think that New York City has I believe the number that we're looking at in New York City is 168,000. And I think that's what's documented. So I'm not saying that Denver is the largest sanctuary city. I think Post, you should look at that, especially. But, there are some people that like to bootlick even in the Post for Eric Adams as well. But yeah, Eric Adams swore that New York City would remain under an Adams administration. New York City will remain a sanctuary city. Eric Adams recently, even prior to when he took his trip down to the southern border, his investigatory trip, even though the guy hasn't investigated one thing in his entire police career other than where's a good place for him to sleep, or how he could funnel money to either his friends or himself. Other than that, I don't think the guy's investigated anything too much. So he also claimed that the stance of New York City is the border should remain open. That is the official position of New York City. And it's the same for the Denver mayor. Denver mayor is white. We're going to look at the Aurora mayor himself. He's white. So Eric Adams likes to deflect the criticism of him on the fact that he has melatonin in his skin. The melanin in his skin, the fact that he's a black man, he wants to deflect the reason of his failed policies. But clearly you see here, we're about to criticize the hell out of the governor, the mayor of Aurora, the mayor of Denver, and they're white, and they're just as incompetent as Eric Adams is. And it has nothing to do with the color of their skin. It has everything to do with their politics. So keep trying, Eric. But unfortunately, this is a huge failure. Americans are seeing this. And whatever you guys want to say, the number one person responsible for this is Joe Biden with his border czar, Kamala Harris, who you just endorsed. And this is what Democrats are asking for. This is what they're asking for. Directly east of Denver, Aurora has seen a flood of migrants and crimes attributed to Tren de Aragua, a prison gang originating in the Aragua region of Venezuela. Tren de Aragua means the Aragua train. The gang has infiltrated multiple states and other big cities like New York and Chicago after crossing into the U.S. border and the southern border. Multiple high-profile crimes, including the murder of a Georgia nursing student, Laken Riley, and the Big Apple shooting of 2 NYPD police officers in June, have been linked to the violent members of the violent gang.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning, amazing Ant. My people over here, friends, listens to the podcast. EC says they would make arrest, but no accountability after that. If they are convicted, ICE won't be notified, and they will be back on the streets. That's exactly pretty much the definition of what a sanctuary city is. And that's why we really have to blow the horn on these sanctuary cities, because it's pretty much a welcome mat. These borders are open. So you have to say to yourself, okay, as a New York City mayor or a mayor of a Democratic city or a mayor of any city in this country right now, we have open borders. So if you really want to protect your city, while we have an open border right now, right, there's nothing you could do at that point about that open border. We're not holding you responsible for that open border, but we are holding you responsible for having a welcome mat, because this is like playing football. I always say, you cross the border, you hit the 50-yard line, and when you make it to New York City, you hit the touchdown, because you're going to get food, shelter, and you're going to get funding. You're going to be taken care of. So where are you going to head to? You're going to head to these cities that put clothing on your back, they give you food, and they also give you protection. And if you're a military-age male and you're going to commit crime, that's your funding. Well, guess what? You're going to a sanctuary city. Exactly that, because you're protected from getting deported, because that's what a sanctuary city is. It's a dangerous city because it's the mayor of a democratic city saying, hey, we're violating federal law because if someone commits a crime, we will not ask them their immigration status and have them deported. So again, I like to say that clearly these attacks are coordinated. We can clearly see it. I'm confident that there is communication amongst these gangs throughout these different gangs, different pockets throughout these cities, and they're communicating throughout this country. Are they moving in lockstep yet? Time will tell. But we have to ask, are our police departments ready? And the answer to that is absolutely not. The overwhelming majority of police departments in this country, especially in democratic cities, are hemorrhaging. We have a huge crisis, a retention problem. We cannot even recruit the best of the best anymore. We have lowered the standards. This is done by design by our woke progressive politicians that have created this abolish the movement. Our police departments are suffering. And now we're faced with more firepower. We're faced with military-age males. We're faced with males that have training, and they're already responsible for the murder and the deaths of police officers in this country. And if we do not get our finger on this thing now, this is going to be out of control, and the police department will be in a position where not only they won't protect you, but they can't protect you.
I don't know. I'm just worried about doing my next bit on this, because Juju says I'm making these racist dog whistles. Please, Juju, blow the whistle when you hear one, please. I could care less. The whole smear campaign, I'm laughing at. I'm looking so forward to the New York Times article. I'm actually going to wipe away my wall, and I'm just going to blow it up and hang it right behind me. So don't worry about it. We're not afraid of the smear campaign or the dog whistles. There's nothing I'm afraid to say. I'm not afraid to sit down with your mayor, your deputy commissioner of operations, your chief of patrol. There's absolutely nothing I'm afraid to say that I haven't said on here that I won't say to their face. And there's nothing that I'm afraid to say on here. I say the things from my heart. Same's true for Eric. So the dog whistle thing, really, it's pathetic. All right, so let's hear from the mayor of Aurora. Let's see. This is going to build you confidence. If you guys are confident in this mayor, let me know. He is the face of incompetence here. You could actually replace him with a bald black man named Eric Adams. They look like they go to the same tailor, possibly. Here we go.
John, you picking on a white guy, John? Are you okay?
It's just, I'm just trying to cover up for the dog whistles, you know. Here we go. Let's hear from the Aurora mayor, and let's see if you feel confident in his response.
So there are several buildings actually under the same ownership, out-of-state ownership, that have fallen to these Venezuelan gangs. I'm trying to walk it back and do the investigation as to how there's a concentration of Venezuelans in these three buildings. Somebody put them there, and somebody funded it. Whether it's federal government or not, we're trying to find out who. These gangs apparently are attracted to where there's a concentration of Venezuelan migrants, and so they've in fact have kind of pushed out the property management through intimidation, and then collected the rents. We have now or have had it is ongoing operations with a task force of local law enforcement, state law enforcement partners, and federal law enforcement partners to root them out, and arrests have been made, but these operations are still ongoing.
With the arrests that have been made, are these confirmed gang-affiliated members?
You know, this is an organized criminal effort. Whether it's Tren de Aragua, that remains to be seen. But it really doesn't matter. I mean, if they're Venezuelan migrants and they're conducting crime in an organized
Understood.
manner, they're a problem.
So, okay, so you're able to confirm that this Venezuelan gang has indeed taken over at least some of the buildings. You're saying at least 2 of the 3. And what I just heard from you is you don't know how they ended up there. And you even made a suggestion that they could have been sent there by federal officials. I heard you suggest.
Well,
I mean, do you have any reason to believe that to be the case?
So here's the problem. I think we're a victim of a failed policy at the southern border because what you have, Venezuela does not, according to my law enforcement, Venezuela does not cooperate with the United States in sharing criminal histories. You've had a third of the country leave. You've had these massive waves of migrants coming across the border that many of them crossed the border illegally, were arrested, asked for political asylum, were not adequately vetted, were released into the country. The city of Aurora, we did everything we could to quite frankly keep them out of the city because it's not our problem. This is a federal problem. This is a problem borne by the federal government. But what we're trying to find out and what I believe occurred was that federal agencies worked with some of our local nonprofits and put them there. Now, most of these people are very good people. But there's a criminal element that, from what I understand, what law enforcement is briefing me, that often follows them, intends to exploit them within their own migrant community. And so we believe that is happening now. Now we're the 51st largest city in America. We're with over 400,000 in population. This is only several apartment complexes.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I'm not going to surrender any part of this city to a criminal element.
With all due respect, it's no longer, I mean, just in the hands of the feds when you've got, we've heard reports that this gang has green-lighted its members to attack your local police. What are you doing about that, Mayor?
Well, we're aware of that in the Denver metropolitan area, that there are elements of Tren de Aragua here. And so, we're, in terms of how our police operate, the tactics, what they're doing to protect themselves is our number one priority.
Do you hear this? Like, what are your thoughts around this?
So I was thinking to myself, if I close my eyes, my vanilla friend here would appear to be part of the chocolate administration. So honestly, he needs to get himself a job with the chocolate administration. The gaslighting that goes on with this mayor, it's like, again, that's why I agree with Marlon. If Marlon's still here, it's this globalist ideology. These mayors throughout this country are really walking in lockstep, and they're regurgitating the same message. And they love to deflect any responsibility and accountability, any liability, and deflect it to the federal government. Easy put, looks like someone's going to be coming for, looks like someone's going to be coming for this mayor from the feds. It's quite interesting, but he said it's not our problem. It absolutely is your problem. You have created a gateway for when they cross the border to enter your city, and they're now committing substantial amount of crime in your city, and it's a coordinated attack, and it's crimes that your city can't even handle. And the fact that this mayor can't even just admit and say, yes, we have a gang problem that stemmed from the border. We have military-age males that are unvetted. But he deflects from any true answers. He doesn't say they're a gang. Oh, well, there's some type of organized crime. Guess what? If they're organized, they're a gang. And you know it. And it's a problem that you have and that your city and your police department cannot handle. Look at the manner in that they're moving. The police departments are not prepared for this. We know that. It's ordinary men with ordinary training, and they're not prepared for to combat these military-age males that have military training, and they're walking with far more firepower than the police department is. And this guy is just clearly gaslighting the public. And again, just pure deflection. The Democrats, they all have the same page in their hand from the same book.
So I just pulled up. This is from 2019, his election website. I don't know if you guys can see it because it's kind of small, but it says Mike Kaufman, Aurora Mayor, tough on crime. Sounds familiar. Sounds like Eric Adams. So EC says Adams was talking the other day of changing the sanctuary city status, but it's up to the city council to vote on it. EC, I want to tell you again, gaslighting. You've been gaslit, my friend. So let's go back to when the NYPD could no longer cooperate with the feds. That was an executive order placed by Wilhelm Warren Jr., also known as, after he changed his name, Bill de Blasio, who is now part of the Paisans for Harris movement, with Lorraine Bracco and a few other fake Italians that want to claim the nationality, and that Italians are in support of Harris. So complete. So right then and there, Eric Adams could remove the executive order and once again allow the NYPD to cooperate with its federal partners, ICE, and remove anyone that violates the law of this country, that's in violation of our border security laws. And he's not doing that. He's not doing that because he's gaslighting you. Also, if it wasn't in his hands, EC, if he couldn't change the sanctuary status, why did he run on the campaign that not only was he going to be tough on crime, like our good friend Mike Coffin, who sounded like a bumbling buffoon who has no business even holding any type of position? This guy shouldn't be managing the line at McDonald's. He doesn't have enough confidence in his ability, never mind managing a city where lives are at risk. This guy was a buffoon. So just like him, why did Eric Adams campaign on the fact that under the Adams administration, New York City will remain a sanctuary city? If it wasn't in his power, why would he talk about it? It is in his power. He could put an executive order in place that could make you put something in your body. They basically suspended the Constitution in New York City, and they did it for almost a 2-year period, and a year into Adams, almost a year and a half into Adams' entire into his first year and a half as actually the mayor. While the rest of the country was wide open, everyone in New York City was under lockdown. He literally suspended the Constitution. He suspended the First Amendment. He suspended the Fourth Amendment. He suspended all of these things under an executive order. And you're telling me New York City, with the spike in crime, he cannot put in an executive order and suspend sanctuary city status? And the other thing I want to point out, which I've pointed out over and over and over again, and maybe someone is going to grasp this, sanctuary city status does not apply to the entire world. Doesn't apply. Doesn't apply. These things do not apply to the entire world. He puts right to shelter into sanctuary city status. He's saying, oh, well, we have a right to shelter here. And he blames that for the reason that he's forking over all of your money to illegals, as he's robbing all your money, as the entire city council, the assembly, the Senate, and even the Republicans that are gaslighting you on the other side, saying we're fighting all this, but they can't tell you what actually they're doing to fight it other than tweeting. He says all of this stuff, but right to shelter only applies to New York residents. And that is a fact. And no media will call him out on it. No politician will call him out on it. He'll say he's waiting for the law. Why is he waiting for the law? He's waiting for the law because he doesn't want to change it. He's just gaslighting you, and more time of funding these contracts, more time of his buddies getting rich, more time of his future donors, the hotel owners, who overwhelmingly donated to Bill de Blasio's presidential campaign, even though no one on this earth wanted Bill de Blasio besides Bill de Blasio to be the president of the United States. That's why he's keeping this up. It's continued gaslighting.
Like John said, suspending the Constitution, violating the Constitution, right, John? I think that we clearly should make a comparison. We know that the standard for the Democrats on the level of a city for a mayor, as they coordinate with their governor, are willing to violate the federal laws and go against what their federal laws see for the people. And what's the best case? What's the best bar to, as an example, is COVID. Just look at COVID. Clearly, our mayors coordinated with our governors in different states and moved in step on Democratic ideology in opposition to what was going on at the federal level. We moved differently, and each state was almost like its entire different world. Florida was a different world from New York State during times of COVID. So absolutely, it's gaslighting, it's deflection. That's what the Democrats do. They deflect responsibility. Say, oh, there's nothing we can do. I have no control of it. And I agree with you, John. his entire campaign, Mayor Eric Adams, was he's going to be tough on crime, and he's going to make sure that there's no issues in this city, and that he will have a hold on it, and he can actually implement, state orders, executive orders. There was no fear then, but apparently he has no control over it now, because what Mayor Eric Adams is telling you is
we just lost Eric.
Apparently I blacked out for a second. But what Mayor Eric Adams doesn't want to tell you is that he doesn't want to change these things. He doesn't want to change them, because if he wanted to, he could. And that was his message on his campaign. They totally suspend the Constitution, violate the Constitution, just like they did during COVID. And they're doing it right now. They're doing the same thing. But that's the problem. The Democrats will tell you we're not responsible. It's not our fault, and deflect all responsibility. And they want it to remain a sanctuary city. At any time, Mayor Eric Adams could coordinate with Governor Kathy Hochul, and they can have this amended, and they can make the amends to bail reform. They can make the amends to the sanctuary cities, and actually make it something that's livable and inhabitable if they actually cared about their people. If they actually cared about the residents of New York State. But they don't. What they care about is their private industries and their own self-serving benefit, their own financial gain, and moving up in the Democratic Party. That's what they care about. They don't care about the residents. Just further deflection.
100%. And again, tough on crime, right? Tough on crime, dude. That's what the mayor said. He's tough on crime. She just asked him. He's like, yeah, these gangs, they took over the buildings. They're privately owned. They're owned from out of state. So it's what? You need a letter to go in there? You need a letter to protect people? Like the NYPD needed letters to go onto campuses? Oh, and by the way, speaking of campuses, the fall year is about to start on colleges in New York City. And guess what the NYPD is gearing up to get ready for? Takeovers of college campuses once again. These are tough on crime mayors. These aren't tough on. That guy is a loser, complete loser. And let's get into what the governor. Let's get to the Colorado governor, Jared Polis, dismisses migrant gang takeover of and please, I can't, because I'm even doing it. They're not migrants. They're illegal aliens. They're people who crossed our borders illegally. Migrants came here to work. Gangs that come here to commit crime are not migrants. This is not legal work. If you came here for legal work or a better life, maybe we could talk about that you should stay in this country. Maybe, but even then I'm going to say no, because you circumvented people that are actually looking to legally come in here. I should bring my I won't do it because I don't want to ruin the kid's career, but I should bring on my niece's boyfriend, who's an Italian citizen. He grew up in Italy. He goes to school in America, so he has a visa. You have to hear the nonsense this kid has to go through to stay in this country. This kid's a danger to nobody. Comes from a wealthy family. His family pays big money in this country, tons of taxes, tons of money to universities. You have to hear this kid has never committed a crime in his life. You have to hear what he has to go through to even just go to school in this country. So even at that point, so no, this illegal immigrant gang takeover of apartments as imagination, despite the video of the mayor confirming the truth. So we just played you the video of the mayor. That was the weakest stance I've ever heard in my life. And this is why I support the de jure movement in New York City so much, because what the de jure movement in New York City is looking to do, and there's a de jure movement happening throughout the entire country, and what they're looking to do is they're looking to hold elected officials accountable in between their election periods. Because you can't tell me that if you're doing a horrendous job, such as Eric Adams, such as this mayor, whatever the hell his name was. I don't even ever want to say it again because the guy's a fool. If you're doing such a horrendous job, there's no reason the taxpayers should be paying you a high salary and allow you to be at the helm. So, and I think that's where we need to get back to. We are a constitutional republic. We elect these people. They are public servants. They need to be treated as such, not put up on a pedestal like Juju, who wants to bootlick for Eric Adams and bootlick for the upper echelon of the NYPD. Colorado Governor Jared Polis dismissed anger over Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua taking over apartment buildings in Denver suburb of Aurora, calling it imagination, despite video footage, police report, and the mayor confirming it's happening. Polis's press office offered the snarky statement Wednesday in response to Aurora City Councilwoman Daniel Jurinsky, who told the Post the gang's takeovers are tied to his policies and the mayor's. The governor has already let the mayor and the state and know that the state is ready to support the local police department with assistance from state troopers and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation if needed. Shelby Wyman, a spokesperson for the Democratic governor, told the Post. At least they identified their spokesperson. Unlike what was who signs all the NYPD hashtag.
Yeah, apparently the NYPD loves encrypted hashtags like John Shell, EDW, Eric Dimwit, and of course BMS for building maintenance section, and hashtag encrypted hashtags, absolutely unprofessional for the police department. But I want to read out 2 comments here, and I think they're spot on. Johnny Angel 68, my brother, how you doing? Thanks for the reminder about college campuses, John. Post-election day and post-inauguration day will be insane. Buckle up, folks. You're absolutely right. Spot on when it comes to that. And also, good morning, Patrick Jordan, Chief. He's got a Brief with the Chief podcast. How you doing? He says, we will be dealing with Venezuelan criminal gangs for decades because of Biden and Harris. Absolutely spot on. This problem is something that is going to stem and really encompass, and we're going to face some major crime problems and some real major issues. And I think that, of course, the politicians, the Democrats, are tearing down law enforcement, the profession itself. And hopefully with Trump, we can start to build back to a better ideology for law enforcement and start to get a better vision and better recruitment, because we're faced with a larger problem here. And I think at some point we're going to need National Guard presence in most cities throughout this country to actually combat this, because the amount of firepower that they have and the fact that they're military trained, they're walking in step, that most of these police departments just don't have the manpower, the training to actually handle. And, John, you read out this article, just hearing more gaslighting from policy. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, just look at his face. It's amazing that people don't want to admit that this is a problem on a higher level that we just can't handle right now, and this may develop into a larger problem over years to come. I was talking about this with several people, that this is not something that's just going to go away. This has been in the making for several years now, and it's just far worse with these open borders and this pathway to these sanctuary cities. I think we're in some real trouble here, and I really fear for our police officers, because if they're faced with these armed adversaries in the street, they're just not prepared for it. They're not trained for it, and they sure as hell don't have the equipment for it. Maybe some of these cities do, but speaking for the New York City Police Department, John, you and I know the average police officer in New York City is not equipped. And I'm sure, our buddy from Big Dick Ballistics, he knows that well. Training our local police department, our NYPD with firearms. Most of these police officers do not have the training to handle far more firepower, and they don't have their hands and the ability to get to it. So that's something the NYPD needs to move to. I hope that they do after watching this podcast. We need to start getting shotguns into cars. We need AR-15s. We need our police officers to have access to this firepower. So you asked, do we need AR-15s? Absolutely, John. We need AR-15s in this country. Our police officers need to be equipped. They need to be far more equipped than their adversaries that have just riddled this entire country with these gangs.
Well, I wasn't talking about the cops. I was talking about citizens. I was talking about that I want an AR-15. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. The cops should have AR-15s in the car. I mean, I think at this point, when you see the firepower that these gangs have, I 100% agree with that. But I'm talking about the average American should have an AR-15 in their home to protect their home. Why?
Absolutely.
Because of, you just saw what was happening, that your mayor has zero response to it. Zero response to it. The Denver mayor had zero response. Oh, yeah, we don't know. It's out of state. We don't know. Oh, yeah, we're working on it. And then the governor sitting there telling him that it's imagination. Look at this guy. Look at him. Weak men create hard times. Look at this. Look at his shoulders. Look at him. Soft, flabby, weak. Just completely weak. I wonder, is this him at the DNC? I don't know. Let's see. But according to the police intelligence, this purported invasion is largely a feature of Daniel Jurinsky's imagination. Weidman added, it's illegal to take over buildings in Colorado, and if Jurinsky has knowledge of such activity, the governor's office is ready to assist in taking them back. Listen to this. Where have we heard this, people? Where have we heard this? Violent crime dropped in Aurora between 2022 and 2023, said Wyman. Despite the governor's claims, however, the evidence is clear. On Wednesday night, Fox Denver aired surveillance video that showed an armed gang of men later confirmed the suspected members of Tren de Aragua strolling through an apartment complex in Aurora that residents said had been completely overrun by the gang. 3 of the men could be seen carrying handguns, while another held a rifle as they entered the trouble apartment complex, breaking into a unit shortly before a shootout took place outside the complex that left one person severely injured. Further, Aurora Mayor, the weak token paleface Mike Kaufman told Fox News on Thursday, there are several buildings that have fallen to these Venezuelan gangs in his city. Kaufman says he believes the building were used as taxpayer-funded migrant housing, which is what the gangs have happening. Eric Adams, do you know?
I think John Shell and Michael Kemper and a couple of these other token pale white faces could find themselves a job in Aurora, Colorado, or Mike Kaufman could find himself a job in New York City Police Department. Again, this is all part of this globalist level. They're all walking in lockstep, and they're giving you the same story. It's almost like they're coordinating behind closed doors and saying, listen, this is the blanket. This is the playbook for the Democrats. They're playing this playbook that, again, pure deflection, pure gaslighting, just lying to the public. This is a huge problem. And that's why I agree with, good morning, Chief Patrick Jordan. This is a problem that we're not just going to face temporarily. This is not on the short term. This is a long-term problem that we may face for years. And we really have to figure out how we're going to revolutionize and evolutionize and how we're going to move forward. We may have to change our police departments and how we train, and especially, like I said, the firepower to handle. And John, I know what you meant. I know what you meant by the AR-15s for civilians, but I wanted to make the comparison because our police departments don't have access to these firearms either, and clearly we say it. Of course, our troll Juju here is saying that military firearms should not be in the hands of civilians. You're absolutely wrong. Again, if you were trolling and saying that John and I don't have the right message and combat it with vital information, you would have an argument here. But you just put up stupid and silly stuff because you really don't care. So when you're sitting on one police plaza, Juju, clearly you don't care what's going on with the people. You just care about again, you just solidified what I say. It's egos over everything. What's more important is your ego, the egos of your buddies, and actually what's going on in this world. Because, yes, civilians should have access to AR-15s. It's our Second Amendment right. We have to protect ourselves because clearly the police department on their own is not capable of protecting this apartment building. So we do need the help of civilians. Good morning, Marlon. Great comment here. And the Manhattan commercial real estate would be collapsed. All those shelters would be empty buildings going into default and not paying property taxes. There's some great conversations amongst some of the live members here, our listeners, our friends. We have some huge issues that are, I believe, that really they're long-term and they're not short-term problems. So we need to wake up and really start to vote better again when we talk about local politics. I think local politics really has become the most prevalent when it comes to our crime problem because it's the local politicians that really have implemented this legislation that has created things like this. Yes, are they responsible for open borders? No, John, they're not responsible for open borders, but they've also put out the welcome mat. And I've used that analogy before. If you lived in a community and we took out the guard at the gate and people just came running in and there's a row of houses, which houses are they going to enter or try to find occupancy? It's going to be the ones that have food, shelter, funding, and the blanket of protection that they'll not be reported for deportation. So it's the same analogy, but that's what's going on in our country right now, and we have to think long-term, not short-term, and be blindsided.
So for those of you on X that are making comments, make sure you're going into the live chat if you want us to be able to see it. I can't see it if you just comment on the post itself. You have to enter the live chat and then comment in the live chat, or else we can't see it. I can't check the phone. We got close to 300 people in here. If you guys could just share this out. We're talking about the armed Venezuelan gang takeover apartment complex in Colorado. We're also going to get into, before we end out and everybody goes enjoys their Friday into the weekend, their Labor Day weekend, we're going to also talk about the SBA's contract, how sergeants in the NYPD have been working close to 3 years without an updated contract. I want to get into that, but let's finish out this article and then hear a word from the councilwoman, and then we'll go into that topic. Denver, a sanctuary city that is just west of Aurora, has received more migrants per capita than any city in the country, most of them from Venezuela. More than 40,000 migrants have arrived since December 22. Again, I'm saying that's wrong. It's New York. I'm not buying that, and whatever. We have that debate another day. The Post asked Polis's office if he intends to backtrack its statement, given the piles of evidence of Tren de Aragua's takeover, to which Wyman said the governor really hopes that city council members in charge stop trashing their own city when they're supposed to keep it safe. Over the last month, Governor Polis has been in regular contact with the city of Aurora, and the Aurora Police Department has offered all state assistance to support their efforts. She said, adding that they expect violent crime to continue to decrease. The Post exposed the gang's takeover of apartments in Aurora, identified the area's shot caller, Yoharni Jose Pacheco Chirino, who is also known as Galeta, or Cookie in English. Pacheco, alongside his fellow gangsters, brutally beat a man at an apartment complex in Aurora. He was arrested. He was later arrested and then let go on bail. During the assault, a witness said Pacheco Chirino and his accomplices were part of a gang that steals from Walmart and claimed they run the apartment, according to an affidavit obtained by the Post. One witness says she was afraid to talk too much because of the dangerous people living in the complex. The apartment investor told the Post that they've lost control of several properties because the gang has taken over units. They were first hanging out around the property and creating a bad element, and that's constantly there. And then they just started taking over quite a few months ago, and they started taking over vacant units. In July, Pacheco Chirino was arrested for shooting at the same complex where 2 men were wounded. All the while, Polis has embraced sanctuary policies for Colorado. In recent months, the governor signed legislation to support their new lives in the state by making it easier for them to obtain driver's license, attend school, and obtain taxpayer-funded resources. Sound familiar? When the influx of migrants became too much, Polis made the decision to start busing them to New York City in 2023. I thought it was illegal. I thought it was illegal to bust them. And by the way, that also violates federal immigration law. You're not allowed to move someone to or from. You're also not allowed to fund them or house them or not allow or hide them from federal immigration laws. Still, many stayed and some moved to nearby Aurora, which has a population of 390,000 people, where the apartments are now under the gang's control. It's been a nightmare, and I can't wait to get out of here. Blah, 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 blah. This is insanity, complete insanity.
You know what's funny about that, Sean, right? You read that. And we were talking earlier on the show today here. We were talking earlier about what New York City Mayor Eric Adams can do, what his capabilities are, as far as when it comes to a sanctuary city. And it's interesting because we noticed that Democratic mayors and along with Democratic governors violate federal national level laws constantly. And they move in a direction that suits best for the Democrats. And yet, when it comes to total deflection, when it's something they really don't want to do, they'll say, well, we can't do it. So it's quite interesting that, that we've mentioned all these things where they're violating the law. So that's why I say, if that were true, if Mayor Eric Adams had no ability and he was just completely limited and had no capacity to actually put his finger on the sanctuary cities, and he actually couldn't make any changes with that. We know that our Democratic mayors throughout this country violate city charters, they violate state law, they violate federal law on a constant basis when it comes to other issues. So why wouldn't this issue be any different? Like I said, if that was true, he could put his finger on and say, I don't care what the sanctuary city laws are, and I have no ability to change it. But I do have the ability to support the people of the city. I do have the ability to support our local police department so they can keep the public safe, because that was my campaign. So right now I'm speaking for New York City Mayor Eric Adams. That was the campaign I said. John, I think you say it all the time. He loves to say that the key to prosperity is public safety. So he could easily say, you know what? I don't care we are going to release the information. We're going to get the immigration status of these military-age males that are constantly committing crime, because with the bail reform, you're hurting my city and my residents are paying for it, and we're going to get this information. We're going to communicate with our federal partners, just like Deputy Commissioner of Public Information Tariq Shepard gaslit to the public saying they're working with the federal partners, which is a complete lie. And if they wanted to do it, they would do it. So the point to this is the Democrats are not worried about city, state, and federal law. They're only worried about their own path and their own self-serving funding and political and financial gain.
Oh, absolutely. So let's get into this city councilwoman who is saying this is her imagination, the governor's saying. Official in Denver suburb where Trende Aragua is wreaking havoc calls out sanctuary city for rolling out the welcome mat, which is what we've been doing on this podcast for a while. An official in the suburb of Aurora is fed up with the leaders in her state for allowing sanctuary city policies that rolled out the proverbial welcome mat to Venezuelan prison gang Trende Aragua and the violent crime it has unleashed on her community. City council member Danielle Jurinsky has served as a leading voice against providing incentives. So what I always say, Eric Adams incentivized illegal immigration into the country and into New York City, which is also violates federal crime, by the way. It also violates federal immigration laws for allowing sanctuary city. Especially after city council passed a resolution in February saying it will refuse to offer aid for migrants from neighboring cities. However, Aurora's bigger neighbor next door, Denver, is a sanctuary city, which has continued to attract more migrants, many of them Venezuelan. Trende Aragua has come with them, and the gang is spilling into Aurora. Here's Danielle Jurinsky right there in the photo. Denver has received the largest number of migrants per capita across the nation with more than 40,000, blah, blah, blah. To our governor and to our mayor, I refuse to be silenced. I refuse to play the game of politics with you regarding this migrant crisis, and I will continue to speak out and help as many people as I can, Jurinsky told the Post. Neither the governor nor mayor's office immediately responded to the Post comments for comment. The councilwoman also pointed the finger at the Biden-Harris administration, saying the people of Aurora are suffering at their hands. Trende Aragua has set up shop in Aurora, which has a population of 390,000 and situated directly east of the Mile High City, seizing control of multiple apartment buildings and carrying out violent robberies, shootings, and assault, authorities say. I worry about everything I know regarding this gang, and I worry about everything I everything I don't know, Jurinsky said. The Post recently identified the shot caller for this region, Yoharni Pozeko, or we're just going to call him Cookie. While in Aurora, all right, we went through that part already. So what do you think about what she's saying right off the bat?
Well, I mean, obviously, like I said, we have a huge problem. Again, more gaslighting. That's what we hear here. We have a huge problem that we're headed for. We are not prepared for this. Crazy 10-7 says, Eric, what's the point of these weapons for police? So when they legitimately use them, they go straight to jail. We need our police to be prepared right now. Our police are up against military-age males that they can't combat. I mean, look at this picture right now. This is just pure gaslighting that's going on here. This is out of control right here. These government officials we have are clearly do not have the back of the people right now. We have to vote better. That's the bottom line, John. We have to vote better. There is no indication that we can actually handle this situation right now. We're not prepared for it. We need to evolutionize and figure out how we're going to handle this. There's problems here. These Democratic mayors, these Democratic cities are not helping. So clearly, we need to find another way to circumvent this, because we are in trouble, brother. I mean, this is scary right now. This is scary.
Absolutely, man. I mean, look at this. This is who the good person is. The bad people are me and you and this councilwoman and whoever's on this live and whoever's watching this podcast. You are all the bad people. You're the bad people. This is the good person right here. He entered our borders illegally. He came here to only commit crime, but he's the person that's receiving government benefits, right? He's the person that received free housing, is receiving a debit card with $13,000 a month. He's going to receive immunity when he commits crimes. He's going to be released on bail over and over again. But God forbid you pay taxes in this country and you mess up. You go on drunk driving, something happens and you make a mistake in this country, you're going to pay the ultimate price. You're not going to get bail. You're going to go to jail. and that's what we're seeing time and time again. Juju says John reads like he used Hooked on Phonics as a child. Thank you, Juju. Appreciate it. Homeland Security sources have confirmed that the gang is tied to several violent crimes in sanctuary states, which include the killing of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley earlier this year in New York City. The gang has been tied to the shooting of 2 NYPD cops in June and is said to be smuggling guns into local shelters. In Denver, Trende Aragua member Gene Torres Roman, 21, allegedly helped carry out a violent caught-on-camera robbery of a Denver jewelry store on June 25th. Torres Roman, who was recently released from custody in Chicago a month before after he was caught trying to stash a stolen gun, fled to El Paso, Texas after the burglar and was caught at a local motel. Trende Aragua's leadership also recently gave a green light to its members to shoot and attack cops across the U.S. And don't forget, Eric Adams has endorsed Kamala Harris.
Well, listen, that's the reason right there. Crazy 10-7 asked why these cops need the firepower that they have when they can't, legitimately, they can't use it because they go straight to jail. You're right. Our police officers are getting prosecuted and persecuted throughout this country for protecting themselves. But still, if you're going to do this job, honestly, you have to protect yourself. You have no choice, and you are going to need far more superior firepower than what the police officers have now. And there is a full war attack on cops from this gang. I mean, we've heard numerous publishings about this gang. We've had police officers already who've met their demise. They were murdered because of what's going on with this gang. It's only going to get worse. And listen, forget about oversight. This, police officers, you have a right to defend yourself, and it's the only way to protect the community. And God willing, if Trump does get elected, that we can move better on the federal level when it comes to support for law enforcement on that level. And at least maybe we can kind of reverse engineer this, right? Because right now with these sanctuary cities, they refuse to coordinate with their federal partners to provide that information. But if we have Trump get back in office, maybe we can have a better system where our federal partners are probing more into local police departments. Maybe we can have the federal partners start to really do intrusive police work on their level to find out which immigrants, which illegal military-age males are committing crimes in these cities. We're going to have to, I believe, reverse engineer it. We're going to need some serious help because, like Patrick Jordan said, our chief on the West Coast, that this is really a problem that's going to stem for years. And if we don't put our finger on this now, I just don't think it's something that we can handle at this point. We're definitely going to need military involvement. Crazy 10-7 says a cop with a pea shooter who can make an arrest that will actually be prosecuted is 100 times more powerful than 10 cops in a Tariq-style Bearcat who are impotent because their hands are tied. You're absolutely right, brother. You're absolutely right. That's why it's so important that we talk about what's going on here. And I think what's important to note, John, is what you said before. And it's so sad. You're right. You're the bad guy, John. I'm the bad guy because we're talking about these issues. But these military-age males, they're not bad people. They're just products of their environments, and we have to coddle them. We have to be much nicer to them. What's going on in this country? Patrick Jordan, you're right. Because of sanctuary city policies, departments and feds cannot even gather intelligence to understand the breadth of these gangs' reach. Absolutely. And even further, Patrick Jordan, you'd probably be shocked. In New York City, our New York City Council does not want the NYPD to have a gang database, which is valuable information for garnering intelligence and information that could help the police department to keep information about gang members in their city that are affecting them in other places. So with that being said, I think we pretty much nailed this. I think we put this to bed. Is there any closing statements on gangs of these Venezuelan gangs before we move into this, John?
I just want to say that AJ's late for roll call. He's showing up present for duty at 9:13. We start this live at 8:05, AJ. All right, you're late.
Juju's on time, though.
No, I mean, again, what we're seeing, it's a politically created crisis. And I think producer man 130 stated that, if people don't change the way they vote over this, nothing will. And I couldn't agree with you more, man. It's like, it's really scary what's going on. So let's get into the Sergeants Benevolent Association. Obviously, it was riddled with scandal under the Ed Mullins reign. I believe he's actually serving time in federal penitentiary as we speak right now. But prior to that coming out, that they were funneling money and using it for their own private resources. And again, I find it very funny that the same people that were on the board during that time are now leading the Sergeants Benevolent Association. Find that very strange. I don't know how the president could funnel money without other people like the treasurer and the vice president, people of that nature wouldn't know that. But hey, who knows, right? Everybody likes to rat in New York City, right? So anyway, the people that were on the board wind up taking over the Sergeants Benevolent Association. For those of you that aren't aware, I think that the time period under de Blasio, the strongest police union probably in the NYPD was this SBA. I mean, Ed Mullins was an outspoken advocate of police. He actually did push back at a lot of nonsense that was going on. But, again, I don't feel bad for him that he's in prison. I mean, he was funneling money. He was doing illegal things. He should have been smarter and not done anything. And I mean, as far as cops are concerned, I mean, I don't feel bad for him. But I do think he was a strong advocate and voice for the rank and file in the New York City Police Department. So anyway, as everyone's well aware, Eric Adams touts that he has settled every union contract. He has settled every union contract in New York City, and that is just not accurate. I mean, yes, the unions did sell all of you out and convince you that if they gave you a few percentage points extra in money, that giving up your retirement and quality quality healthcare in retirement, or if God forbid you become disabled, they did convince you to do that, and a lot of you guys bought it hook, line, and sinker, especially the PBA, and then I guess everybody followed suit with them. But the SBA never signed on to that contract. Currently, top pay cops make more than the bosses do. So what's happening is when newly promoted sergeants make sergeant, they're going immediately to top pay. Okay? So a newly promoted sergeant goes immediately to top pay. Now, they've been out of contract for 3 years. In order for you to reach top pay traditionally in the SBA as a sergeant, you would have to have completed 3 years of service in the NYPD, which basically means 4 years, right? 3 years complete, 4 years, right? In your fourth year, you will go to top pay. So the new guys are circumventing that. But the guys that got promoted prior to that are still not at top pay. So you have newly promoted sergeants at top pay. You have sergeants that actually did better on the test than you, were promoted before you, and they're making less money than you. So huge problem. SBA has given a various amount of reasons, a lot of them concerning the future contract, onto why they're not accepting this deal. And again, we've spoken about this prior. Eric, in your opinion, should the SBA have taken this deal, or do you think that they're going to get any better by litigating this and spending 3 years without their members getting a raise?
No, absolutely not. I mean, we say it all the time. The unions have this ideology. If we spend $1 to make a quarter, we're actually doing better for our members. It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely, we need to move on. And sometimes you have to take what you believe. I mean, listen, if you're going to spend $50 million to make an extra $5, it just doesn't make any sense. Sometimes you have to take the contract, what's in front of you, at least to get to a point that the steps are all worked out. Because right now it's just completely out of whack. The fact that someone is newly promoted, hits top pay, and someone else is still waiting to go through those steps, and the cops are at top pay or making more than a new sergeant, it's just completely out of whack. And I will say this, listen, Ed Mullins has his faults, but, I was an SBA delegate under Ed Mullins, and I can say that, it was good for the members at the time. He used to sound the horn. He was very vocal, and I do agree with you, John. It's virtually impossible that he was actually committing the crimes that he did, and no one else had any knowledge of it. I find that hard to believe. It's apparent, I'm sure, that he was probably sold out, because that's the appearance that I got. But I will say this, it's out of control. They need to settle immediately, and they need to work on moving forward for their contract after this one in follow-up is to make sure that this never happens again, to the point where a top-paid police officer is making more than a brand new sergeant and that these steps are out of control. There has to be something built into these contracts where there's a contingency and gives the sergeants the opportunity to open up the contract if the police officers get a contract moving forward that puts them in this position again. Because typically what happens, right, is the police officers do their contract first, and then the sergeants, lieutenants, they'll follow suit. But that's not what happened this time. It clearly had a major effect and an impact on the Sergeants Benevolent Association as they're moving forward here. So I spoke to a couple of our friends on the podcast, a couple of our listeners. One listener in particular said that the Sergeants Benevolent Association is not taking the contract because of the 12-hour tours. I said I don't believe that. I don't think that's a reason. You're shaking your head. You agree. What do you think the reason is they're not taking it, John?
Well, let's. I mean, it's a complicated answer. It's a very complicated answer because we saw what happened when the SBA waited almost 6 years. I mean, I'm sorry, the PBA waited almost 6 years, right? For 6 years, if you're in tier 2 right now, your pension is being diminished by them not taking this deal, right? Because just like the PBA, it was 6 years of you not getting extra money into your ITHP, into your 50%, which would ultimately bump your pension up in the long run. It's 6 years of you not getting money into your deferred comp. It's 6 years of you not seeing money right now and investing it. It's 6 years where the city saves millions upon millions of dollars. Now, the same's true for the SBA. And what happened with that PBA contract when they settled it? Did they get phenomenal numbers? No. They basically took the deal that they were offered years prior. And everyone's like, oh, I got a great retro, Mo. I got a great retro. And everyone, even on here, even when I put it out that we were going to talk about it, someone said the retro is going to be big, though. Okay, moron, you're going to get a check for $30,000, maybe $50,000, $60,000, when you would have made hundreds of $1,000s the other way, and you might have potentially made an extra $30,000 a year in your pension. So the city's saving huge money. So why do I think they're not taking the deal? I mean, no one's going to sit here and tell me that any union at this point that believes that they're going to go into bargaining and get more money than the original deal, because the PBA under the Pat Lynch administration has proven that you're never going to break the pattern. You're never going to break the pattern. Once the pattern has been set, the PBA went in first, they took the deal. Once they did that, it's over. The pattern has been set. The city is never going to break the pattern. If they break the pattern, and the PBA claim that they break the pattern, they're going to give backs, right? Whatever it is, we're going to take days away from you. We're going to diminish your health care and retirement, which is, by the way, I can't even tell you how much of a decrease you guys signed on for. Thank God for Marianne Pizzatola and the City Retirees Union continuing to fight this battle. Because that was the dumbest deal ever. But the PBA has proven it under the Pat Lynch and again under Pat Hendry that you will never break the pattern. So why do I think? I think that based upon history of saying that you're not breaking that pattern, the city has set aside this much money. They negotiated out already. You're going to take the deal. If you get any different deal, it's going to be because of givebacks. Why do I think? I think, again, the unions work for the city, and I think it's the SBA's turn.
I can't agree with you more. I think, again, that's why I said earlier, they spend $1 to make a quarter. I think that they spend all this money, and I agree with you. And that's the key word, never. It never breaks the pattern. And I'm going to continue to say that unless someone else could, any of our friends and listeners on this podcast, if you're retired, if you could tell us of a time that the pattern was broken, we would love to hear about it, because John and I did extensive research on the PBA itself, on different contracts that they had going back to the early 90s, and we never saw the pattern being broken. And the same thing follows suit with these other unions. So, John, I think you nailed it. And that's the key word right there. Never. It never breaks the pattern. That's why they spend $1 to make a quarter. You have to get the best contract that you can get at the time without giving give backs, because when you have a give back, are you really getting a raise? If I get $1 on this and I have to give 50 cents back, are you really getting a raise? Again, we need to focus on medical health care right now. That's a huge issue that's going on right now. And if anyone thinks it doesn't affect them, well, your ultimate goal is to get to retirement. So yes, it's going to affect everyone. Michael Kemper knows it right now. Even Michael Kemper, I'm sure he wants to be on the job forever. John Shell, these people want to be on until they're 90 years old. They don't want to ever leave the police department because what identifies them, and they identify the police department. So they don't want to ever leave. But guess what? The ultimate goal is to retire and to move on, because law enforcement should be a segment of your life. It should be a story, part of the story. Don't make your law enforcement time the entire story. And that goes to my friends and my listeners right here. You know, I hope you guys feel the same way. That this should be a part of your story. Ultimately, you should want to be in retirement. So these give backs that when it comes to healthcare, retirement really affect you. And that's the ideology of selling out the unborn and selling out the retirement. It's, this sandwich of people that come before you and the people afterwards we don't worry about. It's only who's working at that time. I think that's really short-sighted. And I think a lot of our friends on the podcast, our listeners here, are in retirement, and they know it. And that's ultimate goal. That's why you sock money away in the 401k or the 450 and 57, the pension. And that's a poor man's thinking, John. Unfortunately, you're 100% right. That's the poor man's thinking. Oh, these guys. Oh, but I got a huge retro check. How much did you pay on those taxes? How much does that hurt you? Because if you received, okay, for instance, let's say you received $50,000 normally, but then because of the retro, in the following year you now received $100,000. Your tax break the tax incentives that you have are not afforded to you. And the amount that you're going to pay on your tax, not just on that check, but what you're going to pay at the end of the year is going to be substantial, because now you're in a different tax bracket and you didn't have all that money paid into your pension. So it hurts you on all different ends. And I agree with you, John. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think currently right now we see in all the unions they might as well just put the Aurora, Colorado mayor up as the union presidents for whichever one. Doesn't matter, PBA, SBA, LBA, doesn't matter, CEA, all the unions. They might as well be the Aurora, Colorado mayor. So what you see here is the SBA actually blocked me. I don't know why they blocked me, because I never sent harassing tweets. I never really even tagged them. I guess they were just intimidated by the fact that there are retired members speaking out in public. So it just shows how weak for people that claim to sit there and say, we will always stand up for our membership. We will always back the blue, when they try to claim that this podcast is anti-police because we criticize the nonsense that comes out from the upper echelon of the NYPD and the gaslighting of the unions. People don't like to be exposed, but really, it just shows the weakness, and everyone still sends me a tweet anyway. So it's kind of a waste of a block. But I'm going to bring up something here I think everybody's going to find pretty interesting. And what this is a chat room of sergeants, and they're talking about what they're doing is they're talking about the contract, and they're talking about the SBA. This isn't it. Hold on, let me bring this up to the screen. Stop screen. Sorry about that, peoples. Here we go. So this is the Rising Star Promotional Board. This is where people go to vent. They talk about things, whatever. So after all sergeants go to the PBA cantina for a snack on Labor Day, and don't forget the photographer taking pictures of top pay rookie sergeants smiling on overtime, right? And this thing is the new SBA contract. This is the thread, right? When does the vacation break end and contract talks resume? And what they're talking about there is that, the SBA had put an email out basically saying, it's the summertime. So after the summer, we're going to revisit the contract. Basically, you're telling guys that have been working the entire summer, working there every weekend, being forced overtime every day, including their days off. You're telling them that, the city shuts down in the summertime, so we can't really negotiate because everybody's traveling while you morons are standing around sweating, following anarchists around the city and watching them just do whatever they please and not being held accountable for anything, while you're accountable for everything, They resume work in October, so don't expect a contract until mid to late spring at best. Remember, it has to be put out to vote, pass your vote again, then sign. That's a 3-month process in itself. Poor sleep Vin. Can someone else please send these over to the union? The more emails they get, the more they realize how inept they are. Poor sleep. They're calling Vin. Vinny is the PBA president. They're calling him Sleepy Vin. You know, Eric, what do you think about so far about the comments about this?
I'm so happy that you pulled this up because this is exactly the truth. This is what people are saying, right? This is the locker room talk. This is the real talk. This is how people feel. And it's interesting that people, John, they'll say, oh, you and I are radical. Oh, we say such crazy stuff. It's because what happens behind closed doors and when people are having real conversations, the real conversation, the truth, we say it publicly on this podcast. And this is the truth right here. This is how they feel. They feel abandoned by their union. They obviously, there's no credibility in Vinny Vallalong, their SBA president. They feel abandoned, and they should feel abandoned, honestly, at this point. Why should you ever work without a contract? This is typically, yes, I'm sure that some people are going to say this has been going on for years. Yes. Since the beginning of time, most unions are behind. But to the point where it's now 3 years, and especially the PBA, this could easily become 6 years again. You shouldn't be working without a contract for 6 years. And anyone who says, oh, but the retro is so great, you really don't understand money. And I'm not saying that to offend you, but you're not really understanding how compound interest works and how this really affects you and how the tax implications affect you. You know, I read a couple of great books about taxes and learn about the different tax codes. And unfortunately, when you're an employee and you work in the New York City Police Department, you don't have a big business or small business, and those have the least amount of tax implications. But when you're an employee, you pay the most in taxes because you're not contributing to the economy. So you have to understand that you fall into these different tax brackets, it hurts you, and you're not getting that compounded interest on your pension. And I think these guys really feel abandoned, and I agree with them. They should be, and they should feel that way.
Yeah, let's read a little further. So what we're talking about is we switched from the armed Venezuelan gang taking over the apartment complex in Colorado, and what we're talking about now is the Sergeants Benevolent Association has yet to sign and receive a new contract from the city of New York. So currently NYPD sergeants have been working for close to 3 years without an updated contract. The rest of the NYPD unions have settled. The SBA is working on different terms of the contract because they're worried about the future. And again, we've laid out prior to getting into this chat room that collective bargaining, once the pattern has been set, has never worked. The only time any union in the NYPD has gotten anything different is through givebacks. And even then, it was significant givebacks, and the differences were very minor. It's never worth it. Once the pattern has been set, the SBA should have took it. So sergeants are expressing their frustration now on this board, rightfully so. So someone wrote, the guy that was calling Vin Vallalong, Sleepy Vin, someone wrote to him, and his name says, Uncle, you running for SBA president? I think you should, because we need to drain the swamp. Those useless cucks had enough time to work something out in between steak dinners and sit-downs. Then someone else writes, don't forget to send your submission to the SBA art calendar. You know it'll take these do-nothings about a month or two to decide which ones they want. We'll see a contract by next Christmas. Oh, awesome. I forgot about the calendar emails. Something to pass the time between Hershey seasons. And what they're talking about is they'll get discounted rates at the Hershey Parks during the summer, Hershey Parks in Pennsylvania. And it's the same thing for the LBI. I'm getting forced out of my career, and I'm getting we could get you a discounted ticket for the Metropolitan Art Museum. And I'm like, I'm about to be forced out of my career for absolutely nothing. And by the way, I'm not even allowed in the Metropolitan Art Museum. And I actually paid to go to the LBA the LBA had an outing for children's outing with our kids to go to the Bronx Zoo, and neither myself nor my kids were allowed to go into the Bronx Zoo at the period. But yes, please continue to send me this. So I would always annoy me. And Ron, no, I still have not received my stuff from the LBA, but I had recently come to find out my old address was still on file, even though I changed it. But somebody over there fixed it for me. Also, we were talking yesterday about how Podbean had pulled our advertisers, said that we had unsafe content. I actually spoke to the advertising team over there. They fixed it. They manually went through it. It was an AI automated bot that went through it. And because we are listed as explicit, because we curse, and this is police work, they had manually went through our content and said, no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. And so just so you know, we had worked that out. The uncle has long considered challenging Sleepy Vin, as he was never elected. And I would argue that 8 to 10 sergeants couldn't pick him out of a lineup. There's a litany of issues with the SBA board, and I would aim to drain the swamp because I need a solid group behind me, because everyone currently on the board would be sent packing. Uncle, you and the Majaraha team should team up. Someone writes, UNC 2025, you're all keyboard warriors. Having an uncle is damn sight better than a deadbeat dad, pinky ring, Papa Vinny, right? It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to the obstacles, but just as much to stand up to our friends on the board who don't. Thanks again to the uncle for shedding light on these multiple issues at hand that are marginalizing the union membership. And then here's some children photos. Here's someone's son made this, and it's a cop standing there in front of a police station in a nice police car, and it says, "Fuck you, pay me." And then here's another one with a cop signing a flash op, and it's, "Where is my contract? Fuck you." Real good.
Are these racist memes?
And then here's another drawing that says, "My dad says the SBA is corrupt."
You see, John, apparently we're not the only one that makes memes. Juju would say they're racist.
So to the SBA board members on here, if you shoot me an email right now, you could jump up on here and we could get you on the live. You could tell us what you think about this chat, what you think about the things that we're saying, and about any of these drawings from.
I think the best is that he said Vinny Valon couldn't be picked out of a lineup. I mean, we're talking about the most insignificant police commissioner, but he's definitely the most insignificant union union president. Absolutely. Sherry Albo, listen, thank you so much for being a friend and a listener to the podcast. She says, support the algorithms here. Click us. Listen, please, if you watch this on X right now, repost it, put it out there. We appreciate it. We still got more time in the live. We're an hour and a half into this. I think we should keep this going. This is outstanding. This is exactly what we're doing. We're regurgitating the information of what the men and women are thinking on the job right now. It's sad that they're working almost 3 years without a contract. Absolutely, it's corrupt, because I'm sure these guys are right. We talk about that all the time. State dinners. They're having their state dinners. They're eating well. They're sitting well, because if we had to pull their appearances, if they were going out right now pushing a radio car, you would get your contract immediately. Absolutely. These threads are great. And that's what these guys are thinking. They're abandoned. They didn't abandon themselves in the union, but they abandoned them. In Franco put, they have to get permission from NYPD to go on your podcast, John and Eric. Well, most of these guys pretty much have a gag order that if they listen to this podcast, they're going to be hunted down by the police department. But I promise you, if that ever happens, if your identity ever gets released and you face opposition from the New York City Police Department from watching, listening, liking this podcast or subscribing to it, if there's any repercussions, we will have your back. Absolutely. I give you my word on that. And so does John. That's absolutely ridiculous. You have a First Amendment right. It's your right to watch this podcast. It's a shame that someone's trying to deny you from the truth. You have to ask yourself, if they're afraid that you're going to watch this podcast, ask yourself why. What are they telling you? What are they lying to you that they're afraid for you to actually watch this podcast? But you know what it shows, Juju? We're not the only ones that make memes. Because it's cops and sergeants themselves that are making memes. These memes are great. I'm sure, John, somehow if we put this meme out there, it would be racist. I love this. My dad says the SBA is corrupt.
No, this is a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle.
It's a dog whistle.
But yeah, no, I actually, this is great inspiration for our memes. For those of you that follow us on Twitter or on Instagram, at the Finest Cast on X, at the Finest Unfiltered on Instagram, at the Finest Unfiltered on TikTok. Yeah, I think this is a great inspiration. I think we got to bring back away from the high graphic memes to we got to enter in some drawings. I was actually pretty good at these drawings in school. So, yeah, this is hysterical. So let's go through this board. We're talking about the SBA contract and New York's NYPD Sergeants being out of contract for almost 3 years, over 900 days. And we're going through a chat room where sergeants are rightfully upset about it and what their thoughts about it are. We gave our thoughts already. There's about 350 people in here. If you could just do us a favor, like wherever you are, if you're on X, if you could subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell. That'll move us up in the algorithm for this and other topics that we talk about. So what's this one? Please pay my dad a contract. All right. Here are the new SBA kid calendar submissions making my rounds. And Vinny, I don't know who made these, but I got to give credit to those who did. Brilliant. Keep them coming. 12 months in a year. Talented kids working through malnourishment. Happy reminder on promotion eve to all the fellow sergeants promoted off the 2017, stuck on the steps with years to go to make top pay. There are a number of MOS getting promoted tomorrow who were not on the job when we sat for that exam. Wow. As of tomorrow, they will make thousands more a month than you, barring retroactive adjustments that the SBA has indicated no interest in pursuing. This inequity will never be addressed, and we will never be made whole. Stay safe. So I'm gonna talk about this. This is the wartime consigliere. Wartime consigliere. I'm gonna tell you right now, you guys got to stop hiding behind these fake stuff. You got to come out vocally in a group. You got to get sergeants who fall into this and go right to the SBA board, email, call, go there and say it's absolutely unacceptable. They have a right to represent you. You're paying about $50 a check for them to represent you. So what he's saying here is that they took the sergeant's promotional exam in 2017. They got promoted before the sergeants who were just promoted, who weren't even on the job when they sat to take the exam. And the people that are getting promoted after them are going directly to top pay. And these people are stuck in steps, making less money than people who weren't on the job, weren't promoted prior to them, were promoted after them, and weren't even promoted off the same exam as them. So it's absolute insanity. And what the Sergeants Benevolent Association said is they have no interest in trying to get these individuals back pay. Well, they should have an interest in it. And if they don't, you should have an interest in pursuing a lawsuit, right? Because everybody on the NYPD, all the cops, I got to be honest with you, Eric's right. You all got Munchausen syndrome. You all sit there and want everybody else to fight for you, but you're not willing to fight for yourselves. Sit there and cry about everything and do not a goddamn thing about it. So as much as I think that this is nonsense and I'm reading it out, I honestly don't feel bad for any of this. I don't. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. What are you doing about it? You're crying on this little board? Have you reached out? Does Vinny Valalong even know about this board? Does Vinny Valalong even know how you feel? Does he even know who you are? No, he should know who you are. I was only a lieutenant for a year. But I would call my whatever the hell it was when this whole mandate came out, and they would be, oh, Lou asked if it was from you. The question, he knew the question was coming from you. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, because I'm the only one with a brain and I'm the only one with balls enough to say something to him. Sorry.
Absolutely. They need to get on the horn and bombard them with phone calls and emails. They need to be the loudest voice. And that's the part I think that sometimes the sergeants, all ranks, that they seem to lose sight of is that these union delegates, these board members, these trustees, and the president serve you. They should be serving your needs and not you serving them. You pay a substantial amount of funds that come from your paycheck. John said it's approximately $50. I'm not sure how much it is for the sergeants. I know for cops, it's $51.84 a check. That's a substantial amount of money. Your unions are $1 million enterprises. They should be representing you. and you have to be the loudest voice. You need to get together, bombard them with phone calls, bombard them with emails. If anything, you need to get together in large packs and groups and just show up to the SBA building. Just show up there and inconvenience them, and show up while they're in the middle of their state dinner, or show up when they're having a fancy lunch. Show up there and say, look, you guys are sitting here, you're having these great dinners. You're not freezing your ass off. You're not sweating in the hot sun. You're not pushing a radio car. We are. We're out of contract. At the same time, I just did roll call. I conducted roll call, and the guy standing in roll call, police officer Schmuckatelli, is making more money than me. I just watched some brand new sergeant get promoted, walk through the door. He's at top pay. He makes more money than I am. What is my incentive to do my job? How can I represent the SBA well when you're not representing me? That's exactly what's going on. Excuse me. Imagine, Johnny, doing roll call, Sergeant Smith and police officer Schmuckatelli makes more money than you. The police officer conducting roll call, and the brand new sergeant walks in. He's like smiling. He doesn't have a day in rank. He doesn't know anything about the job. He's at top pay, and you're going to have to save his ass and help him how to do the job because you're already in rank. And that's what's going on right now. So don't feel bad. Don't hide and, with fake monikers. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the memes. They're hysterical. But get out there. Show them your face. Go out there in packs. Bombard them and make them do the job. The job should be serving you. And get this right. Next contract, there has to be a contingency in there so this doesn't happen again. And every one of you should form together right now and find out if there's an Article 78 on this, and have them protect you and have them serve you and have them represent you. There should be back pay. This is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that that's not a conversation just shows the lack of care for these unions, for their members.
Yeah, and then, everybody else has got to do it for me. And then I think AJ brought it up. There were two sergeants that actually got into a fist fight over this and got jammed up over it, arguing. What are you arguing amongst each other for? What are the people you're paying? They work for you, dude. You voted them. Well, actually, you didn't vote Billy Ballard. He just fell in. But he's still a servant to you. He's your servant. You pay him. He's not above you. Nobody on that board's better than you. If anything, you're out there every day. You're out there every day. You're under more stress. You're under more pressure. You're the people that are keeping the wheels turning, not only in that union, but in the city of New York. You're the people representing the SBA out on the field. Your voice matters. If you're not going to use it, and I'm not saying to go there and attack these guys. I'm saying to use your voice in a professional manner and be like, hey, what is going on? Like, does this look like a good strategy? Like, what are we going to do? You're ultimately just going to take this in another 4 years, or what? Next year, or by the SBA, or by Christmas? Like, when is this? So let's go. Let's go further through this. On this celebratory day, congrats to all the sergeants promoted to lieutenant. Also, a big giant FU to the SBA. You are all a disgrace. This year's SBA party is going to be lit. It's probably too late for the upcoming promotion, but what is everyone's thoughts about organizing a rally outside the police academy for the September promotions? Rent a giant inflatable rat and notify the media of the rally. I think it's a great idea. This comes from Sector 7. I think that's a great idea. Start using your voice. There's nothing wrong. You're allowed to speak your mind. You're not, freedom of speech isn't gone. It will be if you continue to cower until there's nothing left. You're afraid to follow a podcast. You're afraid to comment on a podcast. And I got to say, I got to respect all you guys, because I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, we had about only 30% of the people who listen to this podcast, like religiously, subscribe to it or would like anything. And that's changed significantly since we called it out. We're up over 60%. So I appreciate that. If you're listening to that, and I'm talking to you, if you're listening to this podcast in silence, you're afraid to subscribe, you follow myself or Eric on Twitter or Instagram or the podcast, and you're afraid to just follow, you're lost, man. The job broke you. You're doing nothing wrong. What could they do to you for liking something? If you're already worried about it, you're not in with the in crowd anyway. So you're never getting anything anyway. So unless you're gonna get in there, you think you're gonna get in there by bootlicking. Then there's a lot of bootlickers on the job. If you want to bootlick, go do it. But if you don't, be a man, be yourself, speak your voice, tell your union president what the hell's going on with this. Understand the issue, and then voice your opinion. Promotions aren't the time or place to have a rally, says some person. And that's the thing, that's a lot of the thing. Like that's a lot of the stuff with myself, Eric. Oh, now's not the time. Now's not the time to talk about it. When's the time? The time's never. Where is the time to have a promotion? When is the time to have a rally and talk about your thing? I'm going to say, I'll kind of agree that, it's a happy time. You shouldn't do it. But you should go out there and go to the SBA office. You know where it is. They own the building. Go there. Go there and set up. Blow up a rat right in front of the building. Get your permits. Yeah, we're going to protest. We want our contract. We don't think they're doing anything. Might be seen as a bad form, sour grapes, to do that on People's Celebration day. And yes, congratulations to those on here getting the bump to lieutenant. Godspeed, you made it out. But I love that and friggin' inflatable rat. Let's see who shows up outside Anton's on 9/13 and go from there. Apparently, they're looking to do a protest, of what I'm seeing here. Maybe I should show up on 9/13 as well, just to send my condolences to everybody. Although I understand it's a People's Day of celebration, why should we care about people celebrating when both the union and the city continue to ignore our situation? And we are also protesting the fact that inside there are 75 rookie sergeants earning more than us from day one. Think about protests in the city. Does anyone care if a group holds a random rally on a random day? Doing it at a specific event is what garners the most media attention. However, the turnout is also important. So if people don't feel comfortable going to promotions, fine. But we need the media to be notified. And if we do a rally at Anton's, the one thing the city will always listen to is bad press. Trust and believe, I hear you, that my very own Rona-fled promotion was getting my tin thrown at me. Taking the oath, then shuffling out the parking lot, no friends or family allowed, so my heart wouldn't necessarily break if a 6-year top-pay sergeant was subjected to the sight of a scabby, the inflatable rat on College Point Boulevard. Probably not the best place for us to debut, however. Media comms are 100% necessary, have to have the numbers and images to make it newsworthy. What do you think about that if they protested the contract outside of the outside of promotions? I'm all for it.
I would say I recommend that they take this in steps. So it's funny, before we ever actually got to this part, because I didn't actually read this thread yet, I said, go to the office, show up there, go up and pack. So I believe take this in steps. You first start out with calls and emails and basically not threats, but listen, these are our demands. And I say they should be our demands because you are the union. You are the one that funds the board. You're the one that funds the president so that they can actually be in the position that they are to serve you, to serve the union, and so that they live these comfortable, beautiful lives while you're living a modest life, pushing a patrol car. They're sitting there having steak dinners, they're wearing a suit, and you're wearing a uniform and donning a body camera. But I would say to take this in steps. Start with phone calls, start with emails. Obviously, that's not going to get you anywhere, but you do it anyway. Then you show up to the office, and you show up there in groups, and you bombard them. And once you're met with nothing, and you advise them, listen, if nothing is going to be done, we are going to make a media circus out of this. And that should be enough. If that's not enough and you can't get to where you need to get to, then absolutely, then you go full force with these rallies. The problem is getting these sergeants to actually get together and rally right now. And then they're really under the gun. They're working 24/7 around the clock, doing overtime. It's a diminished police department. These guys really don't even have the opportunity to get to it. So they're going to have to really put their finger on it. And if they're going to do this, they're going to have to need a lot of equipment and other factors because they just don't have the manpower right now. But I do think that they'll be met with resistance and they'll be met with nothing, zero, no answers. I think the rally is a good job. You have to embarrass them. You have to put it out there and let them know. And ultimately, that's what it is. Embarrass them. And don't feel bad about it because that's your money. It's pretty funny. Juju is, I got to say, a dedicated troll. He says, what's Eric's Twitter handle? That's pretty funny because Juju, you ask him what my Twitter handle is or anything about John, you know everything about us because at One Police Plaza, you run our information constantly. You watch everything that we do. I'm sure you know the names of John's kids. I'm sure you know the name of my kids. I'm sure you know exactly where we live, everything about us. But that's fine. That's okay. I hope it entertains you at least.
Yeah, Juju, I was in New York City last month for the entire month. I'm coming back in September.
I said you won't come.
I'll share my location with you. I always like friends. We can have coffee. You're buying.
And
all right, because I'm helping you get a contract right now. So I'm helping.
Absolutely. Donald Kenton says it here. This is where a live podcast would help. Absolutely. So I would say that even before they get to that point, we need a sergeant that's actually a delegate, that actually will get the support, that actually is in support of the members and not self-serving and moving up and actually speak out, maybe come on this podcast and talk about this contract. The absolutely live podcast would help. I'm not looking to get anyone in trouble, of course, but hopefully this helps us talking about it. And it coupled with, if you don't get to where you need to get to. And that's why John and I say it all the time. We support the rank and file. We are the biggest force from outside the police department that's helping the police department internally. We're helping the members right now. This podcast alone may be enough to put the finger on the pulse because we've helped Juan Perez. Juan Perez is actually getting more support from the union now in his trial that he wouldn't have gotten if it wasn't for this podcast. So as we speak out on this podcast, hopefully it helps the sergeants right now. Hopefully it helps you get a contract. And if it doesn't, then a rally is the answer, absolutely. But I do think that this will be a contributory factor, and don't be surprised if contract talks start to arise now after this podcast.
Yeah, so thanks everybody for listening. We got about 380 people in here. If you guys could just like it and share it out, I appreciate it. Let's get some more people in here. Let's get the SBA board on here. Welcome, guys. If you guys could hit the unblock button on X so that I could send you guys some tweets every now and then, I would appreciate it. I would have sent you this. I would have sent you this live, but I couldn't. Sorry. Appreciate you guys. Thanks. So here's a Munch Housing Syndrome member. Do you think the media actually gives a shit if rookie sergeants make more money than a veteran sergeant? Right? And brilliant response by Sector 7. No. But they will care when a police union has its own members protesting against their union. Exactly. Hell no, they don't care if we live or die, let alone pay our bills. Not trying to get sympathy. Attention is different. The most appropriate option is to attend the next SBA meeting. I plan on going. I urge people to show up. I agree. Let the board know they are inept cucks. Tell Sleepy Vin and the useless VP that they should step down. That should make the most noise, in my humble opinion. Although the SBA has recognized this site and wrote a few emails about it, imagine if people showed up at the next meeting and took the mic for a question. Sleepy Vin would actually have to face real-life sergeants who don't play nice with him. Consider going if you can. That's Uncle C69. I agree, Uncle. You're 100% right. Everybody wants everyone else to fight for them. They'll sit there, talk smack about Vin, and not identify themselves and do it in public. And, it's one thing to talk smack, but it's another thing to present facts and say, hey, listen, what is going on? What are you doing? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And if you guys don't do it, there's 50, 60 of us, or however many of us there are, and however many were affected that already now at top pay, we already have this amount of numbers, and we're going to file a joint lawsuit against you. We're not even going to go after the city. We're going to say you're failing to represent us. I mean, I think that's how you're going to get a reaction. I think that's how you're going to get a reaction when you actually speak and act as men. When you speak and act as NYPD sergeants. You are frontline supervisors. The logo, whoever made the SBA, Sergeants Benevolent Association, they write the toughest job in the world. They're not lying. You have it. What are you afraid of? You go out on the streets every day with limited resources. You handle things that people write movies about with limited resources and everything in the world against you, and yet you're afraid to talk to your union president? Are you kidding me? Laughing my ass off. Guys that I supervised for almost 3 years will be making $22,000 more than me starting tomorrow. And will be making around another $20K more than me after the contract is settled. 6 months in rank, making $20K more than me in 3 years in rank. The SBA is totally comfortable with this. Actually, that would be giving them credit. They don't care. The SBA is basically saying, take your morale and shove it. This is not important to them or isn't even a minor concern. If anything, it's just an annoyance that only gets smaller as time goes on. They can't wait for it to go away. Once the contract is settled and sergeants are making more than cops, they will feel good about giving each other handshakes and hugs on a job well done. I'm just looking forward to after the contract is settled and the SBA does a creative email poem praising the great work the board members have done. Then he will address the small fringe group that he and his board members totally screwed over for a few years. He will say he's sorry and finally own up to his incompetence. Then that will be it. And he will just start campaigning for his reelection for the months to come. Just remember, they don't care. They only care about their pension, not yours.
I actually think the best place to rally would be at an actual meeting at Anton's, because now you have everyone present at the meeting. You have the vice president, you have the president of the SBA, you have all the key members present at the location. I think that's the best place to rally. But even getting to that point, I would give them the opportunity at the meeting to speak out at the meeting, show up in a large pack, a large group, and ultimately the only way to actually turn the hand of the SBA or any union is by hitting them in the pocket. And you would have to gather the overwhelming majority of the union members to stop paying their dues. If you can get 4,000 some odd sergeants to stop paying their dues, I guarantee you, and I'm putting my money on this, you would get a contract tomorrow. If you take away millions of dollars from that union, you would get a contract tomorrow. So that's the key element to hit the union, hit the board. You need to stop paying your dues. That would be the ultimate sword in their armor, is to stop paying your dues. That is their ultimate fear. No one's ever done it. So if that's something that we could do, again, I believe go out there, go to the meeting, speak up, speak with factual data, have your data sound like a stoic professional sergeant. Exactly like John said, you're a sergeant. The toughest job in the New York City Police Department, the toughest job in the world, out there leading men and women, making sure that New York City, the biggest metropolis, is safe. You should not fear speaking out to Vinny Vallalong. If anything, Vinny Vallalong should look up to you. Why are you looking up to him? He's eating a state dinner all day. You're in a patrol car. You're lucky if you even get a chance to eat, and you're running around in that car and you're managing and you're leading people. He should be looking up to you and thanking you, because you pay for them to have a nice life sitting there wearing suits and eating state dinners. They should be supporting you. So ultimately, I think the ultimate key factor would be, if you don't get anywhere, stop paying those union dues. Get everyone together, stop paying those dues, and you will get a contract tomorrow. That's my message.
I'm going to disagree with you, and I'm going to disagree with you for a couple of reasons. One, you're only going to get a small fringe minority, and it's going to go absolutely nowhere. And then you're taking yourself out of that union, so you lose the ability to sue them. I'm going to say right now, what you need to do is speak out at your meeting. And if you get nowhere, get them on email saying that they're not going to pursue your back pay. Get them on email saying all this stuff, contact an attorney, and sue them. You need to step up and be men and women about it. You need to be New York NYPD sergeants about it. If you want your back pay, you have to present them with why they will either sue on your behalf or why you're going to sue for lack of representation. Stop paying the dues down the road is absolutely something that everybody in every union should be looking at. But right now, to solve this, I say absolutely not. You need to use your voice, and you need to contact an employment attorney immediately.
Well, I'm going to continue and stand on my position here, because I do believe that, a lawsuit is an opportunity, but you're talking about $1 million enterprise that the union has to combat this, even if it was a class action lawsuit. And this is something that could drag over time. But if we want immediate ratification, I do believe that stopping the union dues, because you could always get back into the union, I do think that would have an immediate effect. So I understand what you're saying. I agree. It's a smart tactic, what you're saying. But I believe if you want an immediate ratification, an immediate response for the union, the lawsuit is something that would drag on. I think that immediate response, you stop those union dues, I would put my money, you'll get the contract tomorrow.
How many people do you think are going to not pay that union dues?
No, I agree. That's the problem, is actually getting people on board.
Three? How many people are going to do it? 2, 3? Like, seriously, like, who's going to do it?
No, I know what you're saying. I agree. The problem is actually getting everyone on board. I mean, you just said it earlier. We have people that are scared and afraid to actually like the podcast. They're actually scared to follow us, subscribe to it. I mean, these are minimal
Man.
things. So are they actually going to get together? Probably not. I mean, we see it in the police department. But I'm saying that is something that would work. If we could ever get to that point, and I think nothing is impossible. I mean, obviously nothing's impossible. We have an entire police department leadership trying to attack this podcast. So anything's possible.
So
Here goes Ron Layson. I agree with John. You'll never get people to drop out of union for a few reasons: loss of dental, optical, and prescription for the families. Also, fear of retribution, and now lack of representation. I agree. I understand what you're saying. People are fear of loss of dental and optical. I actually looked into it because I said to myself, if I stop paying union dues, what would it cost? And for dental and optical prescription, it was actually a pretty nominal fee. It wasn't expensive. Your inpatient, outpatient has to be provided by the city. Your healthcare will be provided. That's a substantial amount of money. I think that's something I would be willing to float for myself. Fear of retribution. I understand that. And lack of representation. Yes. And this podcast is a form of representation. So these are great standpoints, but I do believe, and I will stand by that, immediate ratification. Stop those union dues. It will happen tomorrow. But John, you're right. Could we get all those guys together? And I would say 99% chance, no.
You can't even get them to go to a union meeting and talk up or send an email. And like, that's the thing. You can't even get them to send an email. How you doing? I'm Sergeant, whatever. I've been screwed out of $100,000 while the dude that I was supervising, that's an absolute moron for the last 3 years, who just got on the job, is making way more than me for the last, like, what are you guys doing? Like, do you think that this is, what are they going to do? They're going to do the same thing that Lou Turco said? Oh, it's not a union issue. It's not a work-related issue. What are they going to do? You know, absolutely. It's lack of representation. So, all right, let's get through this. Uncle, I have the utmost respect, but been reading your post for a while. But notice how you said the most appropriate option. Appropriate is when it is fair fight. The SBA has been keeping us in the dark, giving us a cookie crumb, updates on the string us along, and appear to have taken off the summer, making their double salaries while we make dog meat and rookie sergeants pay at day one. The gloves need to come off before it's too late. Uncle is right, and you're full of crap. If you don't show up to the SBA meeting, stop whining and go speak up at the meeting. Go visit Vinny every day at the office. Blow up the rat outside the SBA office. Don't just sit there and type away. Agreed that his department is a joke, says that. Senior member says, NYM, he's a Mets fan, so I don't know how this one's going to be, but let's see. I am just giving everyone a heads up that technically you are not allowed to speak or ask a question. If you want to ask a question, a delegate has to ask it for you. So if you want to get your point across, shouting out your question might be the only way to get called on. We are all active paying members of the union. Vinny should have to take questions from anyone raising their hand. But if he's going by the book, he's going to ignore you. The message board and the emails are only going to do so much. The only way to prove your point is to have a large number of people show up at these messages to show Vinny enough is enough. Fuck it. Bring the inflatable rat along too. Dead right, New York Mets. He's 100% right. And honestly, you're a union paying member. There's a couple of things. Why aren't you allowed to speak to the person that's supposedly representing you? Why aren't you allowed to ask questions to him at union meetings? 100%. Yell your questions out. Demand that going forward, the bylaws will be changed and you will be able to ask questions. And also, on top of that, why are these negotiations in secret? Why aren't the members privy to it? I could see the public not being privy to it. I could see the media not being privy to it. But you're a union paying member. Why are you not privy to the negotiations? You know why? Because what the hell, how many negotiations have you think went out this summer? What? An email every 2 weeks? What do you think?
I've been saying, John, thank you very much, because that's something I've been saying for years. Even as a delegate, I was a delegate in the SBA, I was a delegate in the LBA. Why isn't this not an open forum? This should be done in a huge forum that anybody should come, not just delegates. Anybody should be privy to this information. This is information that's supposed to be passed on anyway, right? As a delegate, pretty much you're a liaison. You go to these meetings, and the information that is actually presented is supposed to be passed on to the members when you get to the precinct. But it should be open to anybody. It should be open because the information is going to pass through anyway. And it's exactly right. That's pretty funny what Ron Layson put. Opposition meets opportunity. We agree to disagree. Absolutely. We appreciate you being on here every day. These members are saying exactly. It's funny, right? Because John, I didn't even read this thread until now, as we're going through it. But the members are saying exactly what we said before it even came out. Get together on packs. Speak out. They serve you. You don't serve them. Show them who you are. Actually let them know that you're speaking up. It's so important that they do that. They need to put pressure on them. And the unions, the board president, the vice president, they've never felt this pressure. They've never got pressure from the members. The members, for the most part, are pretty meek and timid when it comes to the board. I don't know why. I don't think that they realize that the union members hold the power. You have the candle in your hands. You have that candle of wax. You hold the power. You fund the board. They don't fund you. So I think it's important that they really put their finger on it. And I think this is a start. And the conversations are a start to it. And hopefully this podcast actually helps you with that.
Yeah. So what do we got? Generally appreciate the tip. Are members in good standing allowed in at all, or is that going to be a confrontation as well? I say show up and there is no confrontation. Show up in number and there's no confrontation. Remind them at $54.45 are coming out of your check again this week with absolutely nothing to show for it. Any SBA member could come to the meeting and won't be denied entry. Guess who's not getting promoted due to this incompetence? I'm with Uncle. The entire board has to go. The fucking numbers are set by the city. 12-hour tours are not binding you, incompetent idiots. If the city cites mental health, fatigue, and staffing, it can deviate. Vinny can sign the contract. This is confusing. Half of you want the SBA to sign the contract, which would bring 96K sergeants to 106,000, still less than the PO salary. And the other half are saying don't sign it and instead fix it so sergeants don't make less than cops. I imagine the halves roughly line up with who is and who has always been at top pay versus who is or who has spent the most of the last few years at 96K when you factor in the straight to top pay wonder kids. The number don't look good for those of us in the latter group, and the SBA will take full advantage of that. 100% right. It is by city charter and employment law that sergeants will make more than a police officer. I believe it's 5K or 6K. I don't know if I have the numbers correctly, but you will at least make on the first step, you'll make 5K more. I think it's something like that. At least you will be more than them. That is written into law. I don't remember the exact amount.
I think it was 5K, John. I think you're right.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact amount, whatever it is, but it is written into law. And obviously these contracts were negotiated violating that law, and the SBA is unwilling to sue on your behalf to fix that. It's a very simple fix. I don't know. Why don't they take so long to figure this out? However, whoever is not at top pay should get bumped to top pay. There you go. I solved it. I mean, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't think it's hard. I'll try to explain it for you. Sergeants can't go to 106K, which is correct. It's less than a PO salary. Anyone at top pay would go straight to the new contract top pay, including everybody promoted in this past class. There is a group of sergeants that do not have a step to go to. You have sergeants that are 4 years to top pay and 5 years to top pay. Oh, I didn't even know that. That are both have different pay scales and are both stuck at 97,000. So now it's 5 years to top pay. They need to recreate all the new steps for us. The easiest thing to do would just put everybody at top pay retroactively of August 2023. They have no clue what the city is offering or what the SBA has not agreed to. We have no idea if Vinny is negotiating in good faith with the city and trying to help us. I cannot trust a word coming out of his mouth unless I can see what is being offered and rejected for myself. This should not be that hard to figure out. I believe Vinny is dragging this out to try to get extra compensation for 12-hour tours so that he can look good. I want Vinny to sign the contract and get us all to top pay and be over with this drama. He seems incapable of doing that. I can guarantee you that the city has offered a solution to get this contract signed and that Vinny is the one stalling, hoping to get paid for 12-hour tours.
I hear a lot of rhetoric, a lot of people talking about these 12-hour tours. I don't think the 12-hour tours have anything to do with this contract at all. I'm actually curious if the 12-hour tours with the cops is actually binding in the contract. I don't think it is at all. I don't think that it's any. It really takes hold and holds any water when it comes to this contract at all. I don't think that's what it is. I really think this more has to do with probably the healthcare. I don't think that this has anything to do with the contracts, but all the information, the breakdown here is exactly right. I think if what I remember from the last contract, John, for the SBA, I believe that it's at the end of the 5th year that they reach top pay, which really is 6 years. So you think about it, it's kind of crazy, right? So if you're a police officer and you get promoted at your 5th year, I mean, if you hit it exactly right, if you get promoted at your 5th year, and at the 6th year, at the end of your 5th year, you get top pay as a sergeant, that's half your career, right? Because right now it's 22 years under the tier 3. So it's half your career till you reach top pay. That's a long time. That's why it's so important that they put their finger on this and they get a contract. That's a long time to not get paid appropriately, especially for a sergeant. I was a lieutenant, sergeant, police officer. I can tell you the sergeant position is the hardest position on the job. It's a thankless job. So absolutely, you deserve a contract. If anyone deserves a contract, it's the sergeants. You deserve a contract more than anyone. They don't deserve to be put in this position. It's definitely a killer to morale. Imagine, like you said, the cop with 5 years on the job at top pay is making more than you. These steps are all out of whack. I'm sure we don't even know who's who, what you're making, but the fact that the cops are starting to fight amongst each other over this is just, just directing your blame towards the wrong people. You need to direct it towards the board. And at the same token, you can blame yourselves for not speaking out. It needs to be something that is just regular routine, where SBA members are actually showing up to these meetings, and they need to hear your voice. And while you're at it, get your bylaws and know the bylaws of your union. I wish I would have got the bylaws back then myself. So being a union member, get those bylaws.
EC says, can someone answer why retired members can't vote in union matters? Why? Because they don't want people that aren't afraid of them. That's why. I 100% agree with you. I think that we should all, I think not only should retired members be allowed to vote in the unions, I think they should actually be running the union, because then the union's not under the heel of the city, like currently what you see them hold the water. If you remember Lou Turco going out and holding the water and doing that press conference right after they settled the contract and after they were putting out numerous emails about this podcast that Juju says isn't that influential. More Rogue says, hell, it takes 5 years to break in a rookie, not a rookie sergeant. You're a full-fledged sergeant 2 years in. Put yourself on patrol, 2 years in, you're about, you're ready to go. You should be at top pay. No way it should be top pay. 5.5 years to top pay for a cop. So then 5 years to top pay as a sergeant. So you're looking at 10.5 years before you hit even top pay sergeant. Then another 4 years for lieutenant. So now you're looking at almost 14, 15 years, and the same thing for captain. You're looking at 20 years before you hit top pay captain, unless you know someone and they bump you through all the ranks and they promote you to detective, like we've seen in all the past promotions, all friends of Eric Adams. And come on. I think you guys are greatly underestimating how little city negotiators care about the situation. They have no legal obligation to fix the top pay issue, and as such aren't budgeting. They are so persistent that they're willing to allow new sergeants to go straight to top pay at a cost of almost $100K a person. Think about that for a second. There's absolutely no reason to settle without a permanent fix to the top pay issue. Not now, not years from now. The union is a unique position that the city needs sergeants on 12-hour tours. Best plan is to wait it out until the losses the city incurs is so great they finally come to the table. This is from Nauseous PBN. This person is definitely a board member on the SBA, and they're gaslighting you. No, I'm not kidding. Like, this is 100%.
I agree. I agree.
This is 100% a troll on here. So the city's not losing money at giving tier 3 guys a $100K raise, and I don't even think it's that. I think it's about $28,000 that they're giving them more than they're giving you. They're saving tons of money by not paying out tier 2 guys, by not settling the contract and giving the raises to the tier 2 guys. And it's not only just you guys that are stuck in these steps or were stuck in these steps. It's not just you guys. It's the tier 2 and tier 2A guys. They don't want to pay because they're bleeding out the cost in the long run. In the long run, this plan saves the city money. To not settle saves the city money. Pat Lynch saved the city hundreds of millions of dollars by not settling these contracts. And now it's the SBA's turn. That's my opinion. That's my opinion on it. This guy's 100% a board member. An easy fix would just make everyone at top pay. Obviously isn't easy, as the city would agree to this. In order to do this, the SBA would have to negotiate with the city, would ask for give back, which is what the SBA has said is happening and why it's taking so long. And as for the just sign the contract already, NY Mets figured out why we can't just do that. Step 1, the new sergeant scale would go to 106, which is less than the PO salary. So every new sergeant would go to step 5 or 6. So what? While all the sergeants that are currently stuck at 96K would only go to 106K, and hence why we still have the disparity. Again, I think that's another board member. And now New York Mets responds to that. Come on. You and I both know this is exactly what Val Long is telling everyone at the meetings and the emails he sends. I don't trust one word of what he says. How could you trust someone this corrupt? You're telling me he had no idea about the money being stolen and he didn't take the money himself or get caught out like this New York Mets guy. Come on when you retire, brother. He also responds to the New York Times guy. I don't trust or believe a word that comes out of the Val Long's mouth at a contract negotiation or what he claims is the city saying. I will also add that I do not think that Vinny Val is competent enough to be our SBA president. You could tell this by seeing how the last contract went. The guy has zero negotiation skills and as such should not be in charge of the union. Sector 7 says, let us not forget Val Long signed the agreed raises with the Uniform Coalition on June 13, 2023. The PBA announced their contract settlement April 5th, 2023. So this president of ours either signed knowing there was a pay disparity, is a complete idiot who didn't know, with any moron with a calculator should have known not to sign because there was a huge pay disparity with the numbers. I have the proof attached. Also, FYI, I can go to the New York City OLR website and see the agreement that was signed themselves. So here's the attachment. Is it coming up? I don't think it's coming up, but supposedly that's...
Did it come up?
Yeah, it's not coming up.
It's all right.
Yeah, so what do you think about that?
Nah, it's 100% it's a troll. Absolutely. I like this Met guy too. He's spot on. How did Vinny Val not know? Of course he knows. It's impossible that they don't know. I think Ed Mullins was running the union by himself. Who was signing those checks? Come on. They sold him out. But let's get Ed out of here. And Vinny slid right into the spot. Crowley puts exactly. Val Long also did nothing about the mandate because he was threatened with the same outcome that Mullins got. Could be. It could be. I mean, who knows?
He's probably also guilty of what Mullins was guilty of too, but who knows?
Well, that was my point. I was getting into is who signed these checks. Ed Mullins wasn't a solo operating man with this union. Absolutely not. And first of all, I have found in my career it's very hard to find very few people in the police department that would be eligible to work in the CIA. And the reason why I say that is because no one in the police department, maybe a few, can keep a secret. These guys, man, there's more leaks in the Iraqi Navy. You tell someone something in the police department, it will get out real quick. And everybody knows what I'm talking about here. Good luck trying to keep something secret in the military. I mean, and not the military, in the police department, right, Juju? I'm sure everything gets out in the police department. Sure, Juju, when you run the information on myself and John, that you spit it out to everybody. I'm sure everybody knows every little detail about us. Ron Lason's right about that. You could be a lieutenant before you hit top pay. Absolutely. It's so out of whack. None of it makes any sense. Think about it. You could be a police officer for 5.5 years. You get promoted to sergeant. You're 2 years to lieutenant as a sergeant? You're 2 years. You're 7.5 years on the job and you make lieutenant. And then you're going to make lieutenant at top pay before a sergeant at top pay is. This is completely upside down.
So, wartime consigliere. The PBA announced their contract settlement April 5th, 2023. Oh, I'm sorry. He was responding to that comment. The man who signed the document needs to be asked on 9/13 what compelling reason there was to sign at the moment, with full knowledge of the harmful effects that signature might have had on thousands of union members. There is no reason he should not be held to account. If he thinks he can undo the damage by one, being the lone holdout over 12-hour pilot program and extracting concessions from that boy. So again, I think it's something that needs to be brought up at the union meeting. I don't understand why this is being done in a private chat. I think New York Met, I think you should be there as well. You're probably a senior member. You probably have over 20 years on the job. You probably may even be in the unions. So I think you should be out there speaking, or we're in the union at some point. Thank you, Sector 7. Somebody's been paying attention. If Vinny didn't realize that what he was signing and the implications would have, then it's not his position to be negotiating a contract for us. Vinny couldn't negotiate a discount on a fake bag at Canal Street. How could he do it here? Incompetent clown. The SBA knows the city scraps the 12-hour tours. It's a must for sergeants, lieutenants. They can do any tour. My platoon went 2 months without a lieutenant. The SBA is really trying to get something in return, and it all comes down to money. The city just didn't agree to do 12-hour tours without crunching the numbers. I highly doubt they want them for a healthy family life.
I like the memes. Where's the memes? I like the memes.
No more memes? No, this is it. According to the SBA, you can take that with a grain of salt. The 12-hour tour issue is one reason we didn't sign a deal and everyone else did. As of right now, 12-hour tour is not on the table. The PBA wanted the 12-hour tours to ram it down the SBA throat. My 3-year anniversary as a sergeant is almost here. I'm looking forward to my $200 raise.
That sums it up right there. That sums up. Just shows you how out of whack that contract is. But you know what? I think the key to that is what you just said, John. I don't know if you picked up on the last thing you said. The fact that this is a private chat. Right. And the only reason if this private chat would not have been public if it wasn't for this podcast. So hopefully this podcast actually gets that information out. So we just have a few concerned sergeants that are on this chat. How many other sergeants are not even aware that they're having these conversations? And how many sergeants unfortunately have that ideology? Well, it is what it is, right? We hear that for years. It is what it is. They're not willing to fight for it. They just go through the motions. They're paying their $50.40 every bi-weekly, and they're just going through the motions, and they're praying that at some point a contract goes through for them, but they never actually put their finger and actually stand up for it. Every union member has to stand up for themselves. Every sergeant should be on that chat discussion. Every sergeant that's on that chat should show up to these rallies. Everyone needs to get involved. Everyone needs to get involved. You need to put the pressure on Vinny Vallow, put the pressure on the vice president, put the pressure on the trustees, put the pressure on who signs those checks, the financial secretary for the SBA. They're making a substantial salary. They live a great life. They live much better than you. Have them serve you and not you serve them. Again, that chat is private, John. How many people are on that chat? You have New York Mets, you have the consigliere, you have a couple of people on that chat, and it's private. And the only time it's going public is today because of this podcast. But they need to actually make this information publicly, constantly get out there, speak at these meetings, make a spectacle. They have to. This is great. It's fine. Everything is fine. That's exactly what's going on. Of course it's fine. It's fine for them. They're sitting, eating nice dinners. Look, he's wearing a suit. Are you wearing a suit? Unless you're in the detective squad. No, and even the sergeant detective squad, they're working their asses off right now trying to keep up with all these cases, 80-some-odd patterns going on with robberies, with illegal military age males. And you're out there in the heat, you're out there in the cold, and live a nice life. You should have a contract that makes sense. I mean, we just told you so many different factors, how it's just completely the idiocracy that's going on here. You can make lieutenant in about 10 years the top pay if you get promoted to sergeant with 5 years on the job, and you'll make more money. It's just insane. None of this makes any sense.
So big shout out to the ultimate meme maker, Alamo Defender 1 on X. He just sent me this. Thank you, my brother. We appreciate it. Vin, this one's for you. It's fine. Everything's fine. SBA office. But we need that cup to be, we got to get there's cups in the links below if any of you guys want it. The cup, and New York's Finest Unfiltered podcast logo with the party department, Republican New York logo on the back. We're going to make a couple more different version of it, but if you want it, links in the thing to get it. We got 420 people on here. What do you think, Eric? Do you got a little more, or do you want to start to close out?
No, I got a couple more. Let's do it. Listen, the bottom line is this has to be said, and that's why I said I hope. Not only hope, I'm pretty confident that after this podcast, that the sergeants will start to band together and get out there and actually do something. And I'm going to say to reiterate, I think that this should be done in steps and be fair and say, okay, because it's never been done before. Start with the emails, start with the phone calls. You're going to get nowhere. We know that. But then show up to these meetings. And if that leads you to nowhere again, that's where you have to go out in full force and have this rally and actually embarrass them publicly because of what we said earlier. The media doesn't care how much you make, but they care actually when it comes to exposing the union. And you need to do that. You need to put your finger on that. You need to put your finger on that now. And if you want, contact us at www.thefinestunfiltered.com, and we can help you further. We can discuss it more on this podcast. And hopefully we can get someone from the union to come on this podcast. And great. And maybe we can discuss the future of this contract. You know what? That's a good point. I think we should also reiterate. Why don't the members, especially those on this private chat, if you have an opportunity to watch it from Rising Star, if we could ever find out who you are, if not, that's fine. But you know what? Why don't you reach out to the union and say, you know what? Why don't you, Vinny Valon, and come on this podcast so that's broadcasted, the information is out there on why you guys don't have a contract and that you should get a contract and get something fair so that you can actually serve your union. That's why this podcast is important, because this podcast is a force. We're a voice outside publicly from the police department that can actually help you internally. And how we can help you, your union president should want to come on this podcast. Not only should he come on this podcast because it's necessary, but he should be calling us saying, you know what, John, Eric, I want to come on the Finest Unfiltered because I want to help my members. We're not getting anywhere. We need a contract that makes sense. I want to come on this podcast. Help me out. That's what he should be doing. What do you think, John?
Honestly, the fact that none of these people have reached out to us to come on and we've invited people on, I really got no love or care for any of them. And I don't, at this point, I honestly think at this point, like, they'd have to beg to come on, like the way I look at it, because it's absolutely disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful. It's the furthest thing from leadership. Again, they do any media hit they could do. The smallest, stupidest things, but they don't do the media that their own people listen to. Again, we got 420 people on this live right now. This thing's going to have thousands and thousands of views by the end of the day. The majority of people that are going to listen to this are NYPD officers, sergeants, their own members. So to go on some bullcrap, fake conservative talk radio show or some bullcrap podcast and not be reaching out to, hey, I want to come on. I want to clear this up. These guys are talking smack about me on the chat. I want to clear this up. They should be reaching and he should be jumping on this chat right now. Like I said, you don't think people from the SBA board are watching this right now? You don't think there's numerous delegates on the SBA delegate board not watching this right now? And what's going to happen from it? We're just going to get slanderous attacks coming. It's just going to be more of, oh, yeah, John and Eric are racist. John and Eric are white-ring extremists. John and Eric didn't do anything in the NYPD. John and Eric didn't have anything to contribute while they were here. Our leadership's the best. Just all our guys hate us. But so I'm at the point with all of them. I have zero respect for any of them. I don't know him personally. I never dealt with him, but just from what I see, the optics are absolutely terrible. They're absolutely terrible. And this is a simple solution here. Sign the contract, because that's what you're ultimately going to do. I mean, what you're doing is bleeding out the tier 2 guys. That's what you're doing. You're affecting their pension. You're affecting their numbers in the short term. I see what's happening. You don't see what's happening. And I think it's going to be an interesting SBA election if we have people that step up and actually come out and speak out about it that are actually delegates. But again, the Munchausen syndrome runs wild in the NYPD, and people just, oh, it is what it is. It's always been like that. There's nothing I can do. Let me just hide behind my fake name and go in this chat room and complain about it and ask other people to fight for us. I think, whatever. This is more of the same. This is the same exact situation that the PBA dealt with Pat Lynch for over 20 years. And Pat Lynch was winning hands down. And then even after they watched They watched the entire PBA election be manipulated. They watched entire election interference. They overwhelmingly went for Team Lynch. I mean, it's the Munchausen syndrome. Same thing's going to happen here in the SBA.
Absolutely. That's why I always say the Munchausen syndrome for the Democrats, the politicians, the media, and especially the police department. Because are you going to tell me that the sergeants union, the board members, were not aware that if they signed the contract that they did, that eventually they would be in this position where police officers are making more money than the sergeants, and that this newly promoted sergeants are getting a higher step than the sergeants that are already in rank, that they weren't aware of this, and that if they weren't aware of this, this is a bigger problem. But clearly they were aware of it. That's why I always say the Munchausen syndrome, because they administered the problem. They created the problem by signing off on this contract, and now they want to figure out, well, we have to help our members. How are we going to? Now they want to treat the symptoms. Oh, we have this problem. We have to figure out the 12-hour toss. Nonsense. This contract should have never been signed off. Clearly, this is not the board. And if this is the board that should be there, then they should call us and they should want to be on this podcast, because this is a force that can help them. It's pretty funny with Juju. I gotta laugh. I don't want to give Juju more airtime, but it's pretty funny because Juju puts "we're a force. Shame is free, Eric." Thousands and thousands of views, self-glazing at its finest. What a loser. This is a great topic. Let's switch gears and get right into this. This was actually something that Sal Greco found. It's quite interesting. So the 50A is watching this podcast. Everyone's watching this podcast right now in the New York media. But here's Marlon Bethel, terminated by the New York City Police Department for not complying to a mandate that just completely doesn't meet the science. Obviously, they did not have Marlon's uniform picture for the 50A public record. But bam, here you go. And John, tell them, what picture is that? That's Marlon Bethel, detective of the New York City Police Department, wrongfully terminated. What picture is that, John?
Yeah, it's a picture when he was on this podcast, So for those of you that don't know, 50A, 50A.org, it was created after Governor Cuomo signed into law that New York City police officers' disciplinary history in the New York City Police Department would be made public record for anyone public viewing and be available on a public-facing site. So now I've been asking for a while, who's paying 50A? Is this a city-funded organization? If you want to send any information to 50A, you have to do it through F12 at 50A.org. So F12, for those of you that don't know, means fuck the police. It's a thing that's originated in LA, I believe, where they call them 12, and I don't know why they do that. But F12 is another word for fuck the police, and that's who's running the site. So this loser. Oh, by the way, you know what? We'll probably bring you up. I don't have all your information here, but I do. And I'll bring you up at some point. So this skinny-armed, complete loser who just has nothing to do but hate police. He watches the podcast. He gets Marlon's picture from the podcast, and he updates his 50A or his disciplinary record with it. And again, this tool that was touted by Governor Cuomo, at the then Governor Cuomo, that was celebrated by the leadership of the New York City Police Department at the time, that was supposed to be transparent, and it would provide public safety through transparency. They done nothing. This tool has been done nothing but to emasculate the NYPD. As NYPD officers, we see time and time again on the streets of New York City being harassed by paid agitators, reading out their disciplinary history for things such as White Sox and things of that nature. So for those of you that don't know, Marlon Bethel was fired. He is fired. He's been on the show numerous times. He's a member of the Finest Unfiltered. He was fired for not complying with New York City Mayor Eric Adams' illegal enforcement of the vaccine mandate. He was fired by Eric Adams, who's currently fighting to get members of Tren de Aragua into city employment, while at the same time he's fighting in court to disallow Marlon from going back to work. Marlon was an active cop. He's an immigrant to this country, a legal immigrant to this country, and he's a black man, and Eric Adams terminated him. So, Juju, do you have anything that you like to say, or any of the haters that are on here? Anyone have to say, anyone from the DEA, DEA is a Detective Endowment Association, have to say anything about what they've done to get Marlon back to work? And I'm just going to label it out right here. We don't have to tell you. They've done absolutely nothing.
AJ, what's up, brother? AJ says, I always wondered how did the person's handling 58 getting certain picks. I get it if it's your pick from the academy, but this pick is a snapshot. Absolutely. So the 58 is watching everything. It's just about exposure. It's not what's about important, because if the 58 really cared to have this synonymous to what you're doing as far as the police department, they would contact the police department and say, hey, could we have a photo for the 58 public record? Instead, they sneakily, grab this photo by other means. It just shows it's not really it's not about the police department. It's not about professional. It's just about exposure. They just want to expose police officers, expose law enforcement to put you in a vulnerable predicament, in a precarious situation in your career in law enforcement and in your afterlife of law enforcement. It's just to desecrate your name and just to tear down and to humiliate. I think the 58 ultimately we talk about transparency, accountability. I think it's meant to actually humiliate the actual police officer, because it deteriorates and tears the police officer down in your career and in your life.
Yeah, so I think that this is the last thing before we get going. I'll play this. This is JD Vance speaking at the IAFF, which is the International Brotherhood of Firefighters. Obviously in the FDNY, they have their own unions, but this is a national organization. Why is it not coming up? Okay, it's not coming up because it's there, but listen to what he says. This is why I support the Trump and Vance campaign, because it's common sense. Here we go. Here's JD Vance. Ready?
We will respect your right to engage in collective bargaining. And this is important too. We're going to defend your right to free speech, including your right to speak out about unconstitutional COVID vaccine mandates imposed by the current administration. We're going to abolish every single mandate, and we're going to fight to rehire every firefighter who was wrongly terminated with all the back pay that they deserve. We're going to deliver the equipment and the funding, the support and respect you all need to do your job. And we're going to seal that border and stop the flood of fentanyl that is poisoning our citizens and endangering each and every single one of you when you go to work. And here's another promise. We're going to protect your pensions, because heroes like you deserve to retire with dignity and to enjoy the blessings of the country that you helped build and help protect. And it's not just words, it's not just promises that I'm making. I am actually a co-sponsor of the Social Security Fairness Act, and I'm proud of it. I think it's ridiculous to penalize our firefighters in retirement for doing the right thing and fighting for our communities.
So there you go, Eric. They already said, bigger than even the mandates, they're going to close the border. They're going to rehire all the firefighters. They already said they were going to rehire the military. We're going to push them because they're going to be rehiring the cops too. They're going to fight to do that too. 100% will push to do that. But at this point, still, the NYPD unions have not endorsed Trump. Still.
Well, that's why I said the other day, the DA put out their poll, and it was the poll was all over the place. People text me the poll, and the poll is for the members to choose, right? Because, John, we did the podcast talking about that. For the members to choose who they want to endorse, Kamala, or if they want to endorse Trump. I think it's absolutely insane. I mean, if you have to decide which horse to pick in this race, you're absolutely on the wrong side of the fence here. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. There's only one candidate to pick when it comes to common sense, especially if you're in law enforcement. You got to pick Trump. It's absolutely insane. Something that we don't see the DEA doing. We don't see the SBA doing. We don't see our unions ever having our members have an election to determine who they should endorse. But all of a sudden now, I would love to see it. John, you and I spoke about this before, but I'm serious. I want to see, when this mayoral election comes, are they going to have a poll to decide if the members should endorse Mayor Eric Adams or if they should endorse someone else? That's what I want to see. I want to see the next poll. This is absolutely insane. And what's even worse If Trump is not the one that's actually picked by the members, now we got an even bigger problem. Now we start having to asking questions. Well, was this vote actually counted properly? Or did our members really vote in opposition to Donald Trump when it comes to law enforcement? This is going to be interesting, and I can't wait to see how this plays out.
Yeah, it's absolute insanity. I mean, but you know the answer, and I know the answer. There is no poll going to happen for Eric Adams or for the New York governor. They're just going to endorse them. Like, that's exactly what's going to happen. And before we end, this is the last thing, and then we're going to get out of here. You guys go enjoy your Friday. But this is insane too, right? Ready? I'm going to play this last clip for you. Let's talk about it, and then we'll start to wrap this up.
In the meantime, illegal immigrants in California now one step closer to receiving state funds that they could use for a down payment on a home. Senior national correspondent William LaJeunesse reports. Hi, William.
Well, Martha, the bill just passed the state Senate. It now goes back to the Assembly, where Democrats have a supermajority, and aides tell me it is likely to pass. The bill makes illegal migrants eligible for $150,000 to buy a new home. Lawmakers created the program so citizens and legal residents could afford to live here. But last week, Democrats changed the law to say this: an applicant who meets requirements for the loan assistance program shall not be disqualified solely based on the applicant's immigration status.
The social and economic benefits of homeownership should be accessible to everyone, regardless of immigration status.
So the program provides first-time buyers with a zero-interest loan up to 20% of the home's purchase price. So that's up to $150,000 cash up front for a down payment and closing costs. This year, this $255 million program sold out in 11 hours, requiring a lottery. 18,000 applied, 2,000 got loans. And when a home sells, the state is repaid with a small percentage of any appreciation. The bill is sponsored by a prominent Latino rights group with close ties to Vice President Harris.
What the rest of the America needs to be worried about is the Kamala Harris-Walz administration taking these crazy California ideas and nationalizing them and taking them to the rest of the country. The country can't afford to buy illegal immigrants' homes.
Well, this bill does have a lot of Democratic support. The question is, does Governor Newsom sign it? If it passes, smart money in Sacramento tells me he does.
He's right. If I was a betting man, I would bet the same way you're betting. Absolutely. Undocumented, illegal military-age males, migrants. How can you own something in this country if you're not even a citizen to it? I think first of all, it's insane. That they actually would qualify for some type of FHA loan. I mean, we have young people in this country that go to college, and because of the home prices right now, even with an FHA loan, they can't even purchase a home. But right now, we've gotten to the point that we're going to have migrants purchasing homes. This is the American dream. The American dream. Keyword. Buying a house is the American dream. And yet, as an undocumented illegal alien, you are not American. I'm sorry. You may want to be an American. And if you want to be American, you'll go through as an asylum seeker and go through the proper channels and fight tooth and nail to become an American. And it shouldn't be easy. It should be difficult to show that you actually have teeth into it and you want to be an American. This is insanity. This is the state of this country. It's completely upside down. And sure as hell, I'm sure this will be signed by Governor Newsom.
Yeah, it's disgusting, man. I just think about how hard me and my wife worked to get a down payment to buy a house, and all the sacrifices we made to save up that much money to be able to buy a house and still have some money in the bank. And it's a slap in the face to all of us. It's a slap in the face to every American. Absolutely disgusting. Absolutely unsustainable plan. I mean, when it comes to public safety, Kamala Harris fails. Every police union in this country should be endorsing the Trump-Vance team as we speak. And we just see it. So it's just a failure in public safety. We're going to come back for the last words. Before we do that, make sure you're checking out our friend Tom Sullivan, Assembly District 23. He's in his golden years, and he could be someone that's retired, living off all of his money and hanging out and doing nothing, but he's not. Instead, he's getting involved. He's trying to save New York. Make sure if you're not in Assembly District 23, you let people know that are in Assembly District 23 vote for Tom Sullivan. Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan.
Hey, listen, Joe Mango, thank you so much, brother. Thank you for listening, being a friend to the podcast. Said have a great weekend. Have a great weekend. Thank you for listening to us, especially on a Friday morning. I know that people are gearing up, getting ready for the weekend. I hope you're safe out there, enjoy, and understand that the message that we have on this podcast is that we have to stand up. And basically the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You know, I learned in my life, especially as a Marine, to take orders, to follow orders, to keep your mouth shut, because people's lives depended on that. But unfortunately, later on in life, as things change and evolve, I have learned that the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and you have to speak out. And that's the message that we have for the SBA right now. For the members of the union, you deserve a contract, but you have to speak out. If you stay in silence, nothing's going to happen. And that's what I learned in life. If you just stay quiet, nothing's going to happen. You actually have to speak out. You have to be the first one to speak. You have to let people know that it's important to you. So remaining silent, they're going to think that it's okay and that you actually don't care. So you have to speak up, even if it means you become a nuisance and you're annoying. So what? So what? Because they're a nuisance to you. You don't have a contract right now. For 3 years, you don't have a contract. For 3 years, it's completely upside down. There's plenty of sergeants right now. You're that sergeant I'm talking about, Sergeant Smith. You go to roll call, and Police Officer Schmuckatelli, who you've just conducted roll call, you expected him is making more money than you. The sergeant coming through that door that doesn't have a day in rank is making more money than you at a higher step. So you have to speak up. No more just being silent. Speak up. Your voice is important. Juju, thank you so much for being a troll. You actually made me laugh a couple of times here. He even says, John, law enforcement agencies should endorse the convicted criminal. Wow. Wake up, brother. Wake up. Do you really believe the stuff that you say?
Yeah, crazy. No, I agree. I agree. You got to get out. You got to use your voice. If you're not, you're just wasting your energy complaining in the locker room, fighting with each other, fighting with this one. It's use your energy towards a good purpose. You know, use your voice, your name, the hard work that you do each and every day, and stand behind it. You know, so that's one. And then the other thing comes with the elected officials, because we're talking about Aurora, Colorado. This apartment complex being taken over. You don't think this is New York City tomorrow? You don't think this is Chicago? You don't think this is LA? This is all coming to your doorstep. We're funding all of this. You're funding it. This is where your tax money is going. And these people are public servants just like we are. Even if you own your own business or your own corporation or whatever you are, we're all members of the public. Nobody's better than you. There's absolutely no reason why you're not allowed to civilly speak to someone or ask somebody a question. I've been brawling with my HOA over here, and I wouldn't even say brawling. I don't know why this stupid thing keeps happening, but I've been using my voice, and I don't care. There's nothing wrong. My opinions aren't wrong. I'm not going to sit here and huff and puff to my wife or huff and puff to all my neighbors, and then there's a board meeting coming and I don't show up and I don't say anything. And unfortunately, that's what most people do in this country. That's what most voters do. Listen, we'll be back Monday morning, 08:05 live. Join us then. And, I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate everybody being here. We had close to 430 people in here almost the whole time with us. I feel blessed. And, again, like Eric always says, opposition meets opportunity. So anybody on any of these unions or on the police department or in retirement, you feel you're in opposition to us. If you're brave enough, come on here. We'll give you the mic. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I can't say it better. You're absolutely right, brother. Enjoy your weekend. Monday's Labor Day. We understand if you're going to be away and unable to watch and listen, it's recorded. But
Oh,
we
it's
will be
Labor
here.
Day. It's Labor Day. Let's do it Tuesday. Tuesday we'll be back.
That's right.
You're
So you
off
know
that.
what?
Yeah. Taking unpaid vacation day.
You know what? You're right. It's Labor Day. You know what? I could use the weekend anyway. Let's take off. So you know what? We'll be back here Tuesday. It was actually Lily who asked that question earlier. Lily, I don't know if you're still listening. We'll be here Tuesday. Thank you, everybody. 8:05 Eastern Time, 5:05 for you early risers on the West Side. Thank you so much. Take care.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888-901-BLUE. That's 888-901-BLUE.